30 years in,
I don't
you
know.
don't want me kicking
But he
indoors.
did used to live here.
Yeah, good guy.
Oh,
Green arrow.
Good evening. It's Thursday, January 23rd, 6 p.m. Call to order the City of Franklin Plan Commission. Mr. Martinez, would you please take the roll?
Mayor Nelson,
Here.
Commissioner Shaga,
Here.
Commissioner Haley,
Here.
Alderwoman Day is excused, Commissioner Leon,
Here.
Commissioner Specht is excused.
Excellent. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item B, approval of the minutes. Approval of the regular meeting minutes of January 9th, 2025. Is there a motion?
Move to pass. Second.
First and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. City Attorney?
With the bare quorum, chair is voting, correct?
Yes.
Stated that for the record.
Thank you. So we've got motion pass. Next thing up is item C, public hearing business matters. Mr. Martinez, you want to read number 1?
Good evening. Thank you. This is an area exception.
I could read it verbatim if you want me to read it, and then I'll go to you.
Okay, yes, please.
All right. Number 1, Harbor Homes area exception request for an area exception from section 15-3.0445 F as in Frank, point 1, point and sub D David of Plan Development District number 40, Cape Crossing of the Unified Development Ordinance to allow a front porch with a front yard setback of 24.7 feet, opposed to the required front yard setback of 25 feet upon property located at 9428 South Parkside Lane, tax key number 89010120000. Mr. Martinez.
Thank you. Good evening. The area exception is a request to get a reduction of like building setbacks or lot coverage. In this case, is the front building setback. The maximum reduction that is allowed with an area exception is 20%. This request is to allow for a porch in the front yard. Okay. So you can see in the screen with the red arrow, the request is just for approximately 4 inches. The minimum requirement is 25 feet, and the request is for 24.7 feet. We review the application, recommending approval, as is below the 20% that is allowed with the area exception. If recommended for approval, it will go to the Board of Zoning and Building Appeals for decision.
Thank you. So we have got the applicant here, right? No? Okay, that's fine. I mean, I'm just seeing if you're here. Hopefully this can go real quick and we don't need to over 4 inches. So you want to read the notice, please?
Notice of public hearing, City of Franklin Plan Commission hearing date Thursday, January 23rd, 2025 at 6 p.m. at the Common Council Chambers at Franklin City Hall, 9229 West Loomis Road, Franklin, Wisconsin 53132. The applicant is Justin Smith, Harbor Homes applicant, property located at 9428 South Parkside Lane. Proposal, the applicant requests an area exception from section 15.30445F1D of Land Development District number 40, Cape Crossing of the Unified Development Ordinance to allow for a front porch with a front yard setback of 24.7 feet opposed to the required front yard setback of 25 feet. This public hearing is being held pursuant to the requirements of Wisconsin Statute Section 6223(7)E and Division 1510-0209 of the Unified Development Ordinance. The proposed request is subject to revisions following public hearing and the further consideration by the Plan Commission and the Board of Zoning and Building Appeals.
Thank you. It's 6:06 PM. Anybody wishing to speak on this? It is now officially open. Anybody wishing to speak, please approach the podium. State your name and address for the record. Going twice. 6:06 is now closed. Comments from the commission? Could you read the motion, sir?
A motion to recommend approval of an application for an area exception from section 153044-5F1D of Plan Development District number 40, Cape Crossing of the Unified Development Ordinance to allow for a front porch with a front yard setback of 24.7 feet opposed to the required front yard setback of 25 feet.
So moved.
Second.
We've got a first and a second. Seeing no further discussion, all is in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Now we're going to C2. I will read it. Same process as C1. Minor site plans, review standards in the Plan Development District, PDD number 18. Major PDD amendment. The City of Franklin proposes to amend the text of the Plan Development District number 18 ordinance to streamline the site plan approval process in the Franklin Business Park, PDD number 18, by allowing and adding standards for administrative review of minor site plans by Department of City Development staff exclusively. Mr. Martinez.
Thank you.
Oh.
Good evening.
I'm sorry, didn't I read that correctly?
This is a major PDD amendment to include minor site plan amendments in the PDD language of PDD 18 Franklin Business Park. Currently, as you can see here, I'll just read it verbatim. This is within PDD's 18 establishing ordinance of submission of plans. No building or improvement shall be constructed, placed, or altered on any lot in the Plan Development District number 18 until the plans for such building or improvement, including site plan, building plan, and landscape plan, have been approved by the CDA. So essentially, any sort of improvement that is proposed in the business park needs to go to the CDA for approval first. So this can hamper minor projects. For example, a couple months ago, we had a project for the widening of a garage door by 2 feet at a business, and this needed CDA approval. Under this new ordinance, this would now be considered a minor site plan amendment and could just be approved by staff. So we have established standards for minor site plans in the current UDO for non-PDD districts. So if it was in a limited industrial, this wouldn't have been an issue. It would have just been a staff approval. And so with that, we are adding language. However, the current language of the UDO is very vague and abstract on what is considered a minor site plan. For example, it says, if the project doesn't significantly alter the character, functionality, safety, or appearance of the development, what is significant, what is not, that is, a subjective agreement. So there are two options before the commission today. There's option one, which is approving an ordinance that would have that language, what is the current UDO language. However, city staff is recommending option two. Now, this option would be what is in the draft UDO for that we will be talking about in a little bit. That has much more concrete explanations of what would be a minor site plan versus a major site plan. So in that, a change of 5% or more of the structure's floor area and an increase in the off-street parking located on site, that would be a major amendment. And a minor site plan amendment is any change that does not qualify by those sections. So we are proposing that a minor amendment in PDD 18 would be changes to a site that is less than 5% change in a structure's area and no increase in off-street parking. And city staff's recommending that option two be adopted.
And option two is what we just got done with the CDA.
Yes, and CDA approved of option two, which there is a draft resolution or draft ordinance in your packet. No, what?
It was a handout.
Oh, it was a handout. Sorry. Yes, the handout has the underlined is the added language to the ordinance.
Anything else?
Highlighted.
There we go.
Highlighted. Thank you, city attorney.
Right? Okay, would you, I'm not sure who's going to read the hearing notice, but please do that.
Notice of public hearing, City of Franklin Plan Commission, hearing date Thursday, January 23rd, 2024 at 6 p.m. Place, the Common Council Chambers at Franklin City Hall, 9229 West Loomis Road, Franklin, Wisconsin 53132. This is the wrong one, Regula.
Just keep going.
That's Prime Pack.
We'd open it in a minute.
Okay. Applicant, City of Franklin / City Development Department. Property, Franklin Business Park, Plan Development District Number 18. Proposal, an ordinance to amend Section 15-3.0423 of the Unified Development Ordinance, UDO, Plan Development District Number 18, Franklin Business Park, to amend the site plan approval process by providing administrative review for minor site plan amendments without the prerequisite of an additional review and approval by the Community Development Authority, CDA. The language will include standards for what is a minor site plan. Public hearing information. This public hearing is being held pursuant to the requirements of Wisconsin Statute Section 62.237D2 and Division 15-9.0200 of the UDO. A map of the affected property, all application materials, and the proposed ordinance are available at the Department of City Development at Franklin City Hall. The public is invited to attend the public hearing and to provide input. The proposed ordinance is subject to revisions following public hearing and the further consideration by the Plan Commission and the Common Council.
That was exhausting, but well done.
Thank you.
So it's now 6:12 p.m. I'm going to open up the public hearing. Anybody wishing to speak on this and only this item right now, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Second round. See nobody. It is now 6:13. I will close the public hearing. Comments, Mr. Leon.
Just one comment in defense of Mr. Hamill. My handout has it underlined with the additional language not highlighted, so just wanted to point that out.
And
For
struck
staff.
out.
And the added language is underlined. And
I think you
then
did a great
the
job.
removed language
We're
is
going on.
struck. Thank you, Mayor.
Highlighted in St. Martin.
All right, anything else for the good of the cause?
I'm good, Mayor.
Anything else in here? If not, we will entertain a motion.
A motion.
Option 2.
Option 2, yes.
A motion to recommend approval of an ordinance to amend Plan Development District Number 18 to allow for minor site plan amendments to be approved by City Development staff. Option 2.
So moved.
First and the second. Oh, who seconded it?
Kevin did.
All right, Mr. Haley's got the number 2 on that. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Sir, you got next one too?
I do.
So I will read it. Number 3 is Prime Pack LLC, Unified Development Ordinance, UDO Text Amendment. Request to amend Table 15-3.0603 of the Unified Development Ordinance to add standard industrial classification title number 7389, Business Services Not Elsewhere Classified, as a permitted use in the B-3 Community Business District.
Yes, so this was an application by a proposed business within the B3 Community Business District by Prime Pack LLC. Their agent is Chris Smith from Von Briesen and Roper. So they applied for a UDO text amendment to allow for standard industrial classification number 7389, business services not elsewhere classified as a permitted use in the B3 Community Business District. Currently, the SIC code is not allowed in B3, but it is a permitted use in B1, B2, and B4. And I will note that B1 and B2 are lesser business districts. They're smaller. They're meant, ones for neighborhoods, things like that. So basically, 7389 business services not elsewhere classified These are establishments primarily engaged in furnishing business services. They're not, it's kind of a catch-all term for a bunch of businesses, including what Prime Pack LLC wants to do, which is essentially what a UPS store would do. So packing services, things like that, and some retail selling of packing materials, things like that. I've highlighted it in the staff report there, packaging and labeling service, not packing and crating, and parcel packing services packaging. And with also to note with the draft UDO as well that we're going to be talking about tonight, this would be a permitted use within the new zoning district of BR, I believe is what this is proposed to be rezoned to at 7127 South 76th Street. And it would just fall under general service as a permitted use. So ultimately, city development staff is recommending approval of the UDO text amendment, subject to the staff recommendations.
Thank you. Comments from commissioners? Mr. Leone?
Just one, Mayor, just to get it on the record, this is for the current UDO.
Yeah, correct. They were just in case that, it won't be fully adopted yet, and the applicant wants to operate the business as quickly as possible, so they decided to apply for the text amendment now.
Great, thank you.
Any further discussion? If not, please read the motion.
We need to enter public
Oh, I'm
hearing.
sorry. But we'll go into the public hearing.
Notice of public hearing, City of Franklin, Plan Commission, hearing date, Thursday, January 23rd, 2024 at 6 p.m. Place, Common Council Chambers at Franklin City Hall, 9229 West Loomis Road, Franklin, Wisconsin, 53132. Applicant, Prime Pack LLC, property citywide/B3 Community Business District. Proposal, an ordinance to amend the Unified Development Ordinance text at Table 15-3.0603, Standard Industrial Classification Title Number 7389, Business Services Not Elsewhere Classified, to allow for such use as a permitted use in the B3 Community Business District. Public hearing information. This public hearing is being held pursuant to the requirements of Wisconsin Statute 62.237D2 and Division 15-9.0200 of the UDO. A map of the affected property, all application materials, and the proposed ordinance are available at the Department of City Development at Franklin City Hall. The public is invited to attend the public hearing and to provide input. The proposed ordinance is subject to revisions following public hearing and the further consideration by the Plan Commission and the Common Council.
Thank you. It's 6:18 p.m. It's now open. Anybody wishing to speak, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Hopefully it's working. Give it a test.
I think it is. I'll just be very close
Get
to
real
it.
close. Thank you, sir. Please, your name and address for the record, please.
Sam Schultz, Von Briesen and Roper, 411 East Wisconsin Avenue in Milwaukee. We represent the applicant. Just here to speak in favor of it. Per our application, time is of the essence for this specific applicant. They'd like to open as soon as possible. That's why we decided to apply now instead of waiting for the draft update to the zoning ordinance to be adopted. However, we also do appreciate that under the new draft zoning ordinance, this would be an allowed use by right as well. So trying to move as quickly as possible, but express appreciation to the staff and kind of the current ordinance change and the draft ordinance that you're going to discuss in a little bit.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on this? Please come forward. Going twice. It is 6:19 p.m. We'll close that now. Any comments from the commissioners? Seeing none, please read the motion.
A motion to recommend approval of an ordinance to amend the Unified Development Ordinance text at Table 15-50603, Standard Industrial Classification Title Number 7389, Business Services Not Elsewhere Classified, to allow such use as a permitted use in the B3 Community Business District.
So moved.
Second.
We've got a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have, a motion carries. Counselor, you heard that crystal clear?
The record did too.
Excellent. That's what it's all about. Moving on to C4, an explosive topic. It's a joke. Anybody catch C4? You did. Thank you. Military guy, did you catch C4?
Oh, yeah, I
Okay.
missed that one. Well done.
Gotta keep up with me here.
Just before the presentation, we'd like to confirm that our consultant is connected.
And then I
Jack.
will, I'll read it when you're ready for me.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you all.
Okay.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Great.
Okay, I will
Yes,
read
of
then
course.
what C4 is about. C4 Unified Development Ordinance UDO rewrite. The City of Franklin proposes to repeal and replace its Unified Development Ordinance UDO and zoning map. A major component of the update includes consolidating redundant zoning districts to make the UDO and zoning map more user-friendly. This remapping action is not intended to down-zone properties after property rights or limit development potential. Rather, it is intended to improve clarity around allowable uses, reduce confusion, and increase alignment between the UDO regulations and the type of development on the ground in Franklin. So who's wishing to speak on this one?
Thank you. Good
Martinez?
evening. Regular Martinez, Planning Manager. So finally, we're here at the public hearing for the UDO rewrite. This started in 2021. So you have a lot of works to get this draft prepared and also the zoning map. Several meetings with the Plan Commission, the Common Council to get feedback, also with the community. So in this presentation, I will go first kind of a look back of all the process, so how we get here. Then an overview of the text of the ordinance, major changes, and then finally to the zoning map. Okay, so this is the overall process. So now we're at the final step, the UDO adoption and public hearing. But first we have to kind of go through the project kickoff in 2021, then all the public engagement. I would like to mention that we'll see in a step 2 public engagement, but that is the initial public engagement before the diagnosis of the current UDO. But all the way through the process, there has been ongoing public engagement. Then after the public engagement, we have the current UDO diagnosis that was to kind of assess the current UDO, look for the major weakness, and identify the priorities for the update. That's, you can see here in this list. So one of the priority was to streamline regulations to kind of to reduce the time for a project to get completed, rather than a project that needs to go, for example, for 3 meetings to try to reduce that to 2 meetings to save some time and then kind of promote development in the city. The other priority was to consolidate similar zoning district. I will touch on that later in the presentation. Improve the user friendliness of the document and make the document more readable, like for example, like adding graphics. And finally, to protect the natural resource, to retain the natural resource protection standards with some revision that we'll get into the details later in the presentation. Okay, so the public engagement, as I mentioned before, we have the initial public engagement mainly in 2021 with first public workshop. You can see the picture on the top right. The stakeholder interviews to some developers, elected officials, and also even a booth at the St. Martin's Fair in 2021. And then the ongoing public engagement after that. So I will start with the last event that was the public open house back in December. Then task force meeting with the Plan Commission, 14 meetings with the Plan Commission to go over each article that was presented to the Plan Commission. Status updates before the Common Council, a total of 6 presentations since the start of the project. Also for the agreement, the approval of the agreement to hire the consultant. Online tools, a website, and the story map. We'll do later a demo of the story map. The city newsletter last December. Focus group with residents last year. We did 2 focus group with 4 to 3 residents. And meeting with the developers specifically on natural resources. Okay, The diagnosis of the UDO that was prepared in 2022, kind of to identify the major changes needed to the ordinance. So one of the conclusions from that diagnosis was to have a new table of contents. So all topics that are typically used in conjunction to be in one article. Like, for example, the current UDO has some, the administrative procedures, some in different parts of the UDO. So this is kind of to be, have everything that is, for example, related to administrative procedures in one article. Also set standards for uses that were not common when the UDO was adopted in 1998, like, for example, food trucks, accessory dwelling units, outdoor dining, short-term rentals, and solar energy. Changed the minimum parking requirement for maximum parking requirements. We'll see that in detail later. Add some standards to promote walkability, like bicycle parking and pedestrian walkways. And also add graphics, as I mentioned before. So this is an example here of a graphic that explains the setbacks, where an accessory structure like a shed is allowed, and you will see in the hatch area. So I have to explain, or staff has to explain this, like at the front counter several times, and just having a graphic is a little bit easier. Okay. One work that was done during the diagnosis was the nonconformity analysis, because the new UDO will have new zoning districts with standards like the minimum lot area or minimum lot width. So we wanted to make sure that the new districts will not create nonconformities, so make existing lots non-conforming to the new UDO. So, oh, sorry.
Yeah, just a little closer. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So we can, this is an example for one of the districts, the RSR districts. So with a minimum lot area of 10,000. So this was an alternative. Let's try if this district is 16,000 square feet. So if that is the minimum lot area, so all these lots here in red will be non-conforming. So then we change it to 10,000 square feet to reduce nonconformities. So the numbers that you will see in the table for the district standards are there as a result of an analysis. So, okay. Computer is slow today.
Stronger pointer.
You need a stronger pointer? I've got one.
No, it's.
Someday you guys will get it. I think you're. Need double A's? I've got them.
Yeah. Okay.
Dollar store we went
I
to
worked.
today.
Okay. Okay. So after the diagnosis, the next step was all the review meetings with the Plan Commission and the task force. Task force, the difference is that it has 2 members from the Environmental Commission and 1 member from the Economic Development Commission. So a total of 14 meetings between 2022 and the last one was in September 2024, and kind of went through all the articles and also the diagnostic that I presented. So some of these articles were presented 2 times to the Plan Commission, so kind of to have like a feedback look. They presented the article, get the feedback, incorporate the revisions, and then present the articles again. So we have here kind of the workflow, and then that repeat. For some articles, like the administrative procedures, the district use standards, and also the zoning map that was presented 2 times. Oh, okay. 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 Sorry for it's a formatting problem there, but okay. So then now I presented all the previous steps. Now we're going to the text and the major changes. As I mentioned before, one of major changes recommended was the table of contents and to have similar topics into one single article. Like, for example, all the administrative procedures into one article. So this is the table of contents with 12 articles. So I will go to each article. Okay. For the first two articles, the general provisions is kind of provide the purpose, the authority and intent, the jurisdiction of the ordinance. There were no major changes that have been made to this. So just reorganizing, having all this in one article. But other than that, then the establishment of the districts. Here's where we are proposing the consolidation of similar zoning districts. Currently, we have 38 zoning districts, and we're proposing to reduce that to 19 zoning districts. Having this amount of zoning district complicates kind of the understanding the ordinance for staff and also for residents. Also complicates the permitting process. This is an example of two zoning districts that are nearly identical and why it makes sense to consolidate the zoning district. So this is the R4 and R5 zoning district. Even the name is the same, Suburban Single Family Residence District. It's the same name for the two districts. All these boxes are the standards that you see in this R4, sorry, and you see also in the R5 zoning districts. So you can see most of them. And the ones that are not exactly the same are really similar, 12,000 to 13,000 square feet minimum lot area. So we think that this is kind of unnecessary to have all this amount of zoning districts. Okay. Next article is the district specific standards. This will kind of provide the standards for each of the zoning districts. So what we're doing here, the major change is to simplify the bulk of dimensional standards, like for example, setbacks, building height, impervious surface. So what we're doing is eliminating some of the metrics that are kind of complicated to understand, like for example, the maximum gross density. So because the density, like for example, quantity of units by acre, that is regulated by the minimum lot area. So we have a minimum lot area that will determine the maximum yield of units that a subdivision will have. So by having only the minimum lot area will also regulate the density. Sorry.
I've got more batteries.
Okay, so this is the proposed table that have all the standards that I mentioned: minimum lot area per dwelling unit, lot width, etc. And then we compare that to the existing table. And the new UDO will have one table for all residential districts. Since the current UDO has one table that is more complicated for each district. So that's why one of the objectives is to streamline and simplify the ordinance text. All the standards that I highlighted in red there are standards that are going to be eliminated. Like, for example, the minimum total living area. Okay. Another important change of this article, district-specific standards, is the is to replace the outdated standard industrial classification system that was created approximately in the 50s and was last updated in the 80s. So some uses that we have here, like the food trucks or the ADUs, are not in the SAC table. And also, it provides, like, say, hyper-specific uses that we're proposing to consolidate. So this is, for example, women's footwear except athletic or beverage, etc. The table is like 37 pages. So we're proposing to have like a general category, for example, general retail, that will encompass all these uses. And it will avoid problems because in the current table, for example, use of merchandise, let's say, is permitted, but there's use of merchandise of a specific type that requires conditional use. And then we present the conditional use, public hearing, etc. That kind of makes add additional time to get permits for business. Okay. Then we jump to Article 4, user-specific standards. So this article goes into some uses and provide standards, let's say standards for duplex, standard for townhomes, standards for accessory dwelling units, etc. Major changes here, it's to allow by right duplexes, townhomes, multifamily developments in multifamily residential districts. Currently, it needs to go through the special use process for a multifamily project, even if it's located in a multifamily residence district. So we think that if it's zoned for multifamily, then the multifamily uses should be allowed by right. That also reduces the permitting time, as I mentioned before. And this is a graphic, for example, for duplexes. This new UDO has a lot of graphics that makes the text more readable. Accessory dwelling units, that's another important change. Common names, it's like an in-lot suite or granny flats or secondary units. The proposal is to allow by right the internal ADU without changing the exterior appearance of the homes, like this graphic here is showing. And for detached or attached or like a garage apartment, have the conditional use process. So it will go to a plan commission and the common council for decision with a public hearing. Okay. Okay, now we turn to Article 5. Article 5, it's basically about off-street parking, landscaping, and lighting. But in the presentation, I will go just to the highlights, major changes. So one major change here is the parking requirements. We're proposing to replace the parking minimums with parking maximums. This will reduce the development costs and will kind of leave more to the market the parking that needs to be provided. And if a developer is proposing more parking, parking over the maximum that is going to be set with this ordinance, then he has the variance process to get the approval. So one example here, kind of compare retail uses, the current and proposed. The standards are very similar. Like this is, for example, 4 spaces per 1,000 square feet. We're proposing 1 space per 250 square feet. It is the same. The difference is that the current is the minimum and the proposed is maximum, okay? For some uses in the current UDO, this example, the convenience market, 1,000 square feet of the building, okay, requires 8 parking spaces. Typical parking space area is 180 square feet. Make the math, 1,400 approximately square feet. So that means that the parking area is more than the building. And this is not including the aisles. This is just the parking stall, the aisles of the driveway. Okay, so this is a theoretical example, but we have examples. This is a real example. This photograph is actually by Marion. This is a parking stall. We can see that it's underutilized because this hasn't been plowed. And the building area, 30,000 square feet, parking area, 84,000.
So just, Mr. Martinez, so if you have a 30,000 square foot building, it would require an 84,000 square foot parking area. Is that what I'm seeing up there?
With the current ordinance.
Correct.
Yeah. Approximately.
I just wanted to make
Yeah.
that ridiculous point. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Hold on. Sorry, it's not responding. It takes a little time here.
There you go.
Okay. Okay. Another change that I kind of mentioned before is the pedestrian walkways. So this is a new standard that is intended to connect buildings within a single side or building entrances to parking spaces or building entrances to public right-of-way or public sidewalks. So it would provide like this path as a requirement for new projects. Again, if there's a project that for some special conditions can meet this requirement, then there's the variance process. Okay, cross-access, new requirement. This is an example. This is intended to connect adjacent sites. This is only for non-residential and multifamily, and this will reduce the need for additional driveways into collector roads. Okay. The building design standards or architectural standards, we're proposing to change it and provide for more measurable standards, like for example, percentage of exterior materials, percentage of glazing and windows. So this will apply for multifamily and commercial uses, and also for industrial uses. So you can see in the table that there are, for example, masonry for multifamily, for example, on the front side, the minimum is 50%. Okay, but that will change depending on the use and depending on the facade. What we're trying to deviate is from the existing standards. There are vague. As you can see here, the text, it says, like, for example, unattractive appearance, or aesthetically incompatible, or in general harmony. But we're trying to get away from that and provide more measurable standards. These standards, these percentages, have been tested with approved developments. So, for example, this is the Knollwood Apartments, the front facade. This will comply with the proposed standards because of the percentage of the material use. This rear facade will not comply because it's kind of have more garage doors. There is a metal siding a little bit over or where we are proposing. Okay. Now we go to the signage standards. One change here is that we're proposing to bring the signage standards from the municipal code and bring it into the UDO. And one of the principles is to provide for content neutral standards. So we can regulate over the message or the content that is based on a Supreme Court decision, the Reed versus Gilbert. and have graphics to make the codes more accessible. The current municipal code section doesn't have a single graphic, not even one. Okay. Then we jump to the Article 7 Natural Resource Protection Standards that will be presented by Marion X.
Thank you. Thank you. And this is being presented by me separately because some additional work was done on this section as a priority for the project. So in addition to some of the public input that the overall UDO had, this was also material that was presented to the Environmental Commission, and we did some additional stakeholder work with the DNR, with business owners, with the members of the public. So I want to take a second to canvass the purpose of these protections, because the current ordinance is something that I think a lot of members of the community are proud of and was produced by this community with an eye towards the conservation of existing natural resources. This community places a high premium on those natural resources and how they contribute to the lush green character of your city. And that's something that we've made an effort to maintain while also streamlining the processes within the ordinance to allow for things that when requests are reasonable, that there are ways to get to an approval without overly complicating things. So when conservation is not practical for some reason based on a design, then compensation is required for impacts for the loss of those environmental features. So the current ordinance does that again in a very vague way. It says you must give 1.5 units of thing, whatever the natural resource is, for every 1 unit of thing that you are impacting. And that you do so here in Franklin. This is something that is a difference from a lot of other communities, but it is something that has resulted in the green, lush environment that you're proud of. So, and then of course the law, the goal here is to remain in compliance with federal and state law. So there are some elements that I'm going to touch on that have already changed that do that, and then some other things that will be as part of this new update. So just to briefly touch on when we talk about a natural resource, the current ordinance protects several categories, which are steep slopes in several levels of grade, 2 types of woodlands, and all water resources within the corporate boundary. And they do so a little bit differently depending on the type of zoning for the area and then the impact level that is permitted. There are, if you impact woodlands, there is a level to which you can do so through basically a site plan approval or a zoning compliance. Everything else requires a natural resource special exception or a variance process. And this is a significant variance process that requires 3 meetings. We got lots of feedback that this was something that was burdensome to applicants, but also not resulting in good development standards. So it requires review by the Environmental Commission with a recommendation, Plan Commission with a recommendation, and then approval by Common Council. So this is the current standard. And what is proposed is some significant changes to the organization of this part of the ordinance. So stormwater and erosion controls are proposed to be relocated to the municipal code. While it's currently in the draft ordinance, this is a part of the ordinance that is used more frequently by the engineering department and is something that they should have more direct control over. Planning doesn't need to regulate that. It does need to relate to the natural resource protection standards, but overall this was a change that was desirable in order to kind of streamline processes. We are proposing to adopt a shoreline wetland zoning ordinance. This is an ordinance that will comply with the state natural resource rule number 117. So we're just adopting the model ordinance. It didn't seem to be a good reason to alter it in any substantive way. As this commission, it may be aware, there are some changes to flood zoning. So we're deleting the zoning as a category on our map. There will no longer be mapped zoning in the sense that if you look at the current zoning map, there are big swaths of blue throughout it where there's an underlying use, be it agricultural, residential, whatever, but the floodway zoning has additional standards over and above the required floodplain ordinance that the city must adopt to remain in compliance with FEMA standards. Instead, we'll be deleting that local map and only using FEMA's maps. They will become an overlay for that zoning map. And so the base use will remain the same, and then we'll regulate development within the floodplain according to the floodplain ordinance. So that new floodplain ordinance was actually already adopted on August 20th of 2024 and approved by the DNR. So, and then overall, there was a reorganization and consolidation of these natural resource standards. They were kind of, there's 2 chapters that were specific to them, and then stuff just like sprinkled all through the ordinance, and it was really fun to apply. So we've tried to make it as we have done with all of this project, much clearer, much more accessible both to staff and to the general public. We want this to be for you. So if folks are looking at this material, it's in terms that are reasonable and understandable to the general public. And we tried to get rid of a lot of just jargon and all of that stuff. So, okay. So the new Article 7, which was included in the packet for review, and just I'm going to touch on the most broad areas of change here. We did a little bit of restructuring of the types of features that are to be protected. We are proposing that we change from a standard of what we've previously referred to as mitigation and move to something more like compensation. So this eliminates some conflicts with DNR and federal requirements. They have very specific, when they say mitigation, they mean something specific. And it's defined by them, and then our standards were sometimes in conflict with that. And it also establishes and clarifies the purpose of that requirement. So as I said earlier, this is something where if someone is making an impact to natural resources here in Franklin, this community should get something for that. And that is the goal here. So there's a clarification and guidance for required documents and plans. So there's a number of types of drawings and submittals that are required for this, that they all look different depending on who's producing them. And that is no longer going to be the case. And then we're so happy to have illustrations throughout this new document. So illustrations, I'm so excited. Okay. So protected resources, the table does look bigger. I will acknowledge that, but these are all notes at the bottom. So I want to just talk about what's changing. The current ordinance protects those surface waters and wetlands and their buffers, woodlands and wetlands, overlapping natural resource areas, surface water, wetlands, or wetland buffers, which are an area which is 30 feet from the boundary of a wetland or 70 feet from the ordinary high water mark of a river. They vary across the different type of natural resources, but there is a buffer, a boundary which you cannot encroach upon. That's not going away. Nor are the protections for woodlands, although we're going to reduce it to one category. There are areas of overlapping natural resources, surface waters, and then the current ordinance protects steep slopes and an additional setback. So in some cases, we have an area of buffer where we don't allow encroachments, we don't allow alterations, and then an additional setback, which is over and above, it's basically an extra buffer. And so it works out that creates a lot of confusion. And so the new ordinance is going to remove that additional setback and remove the category of steep slopes. They're actually not something we encounter quite often in Franklin, and something that is also addressed by the erosion control ordinance. And we're also going to add some new categories. So there are sewer PAC. Sewer PAC is the regional planning agency. They have identified areas of all of the communities within their service area that have significant natural resource features and are considered a corridor or an area where the ecosystem is interconnected as water flows through it, as wildlife flows through it, et cetera. And they have quantified all that information and mapped it. So we have that map, and we'll be using that information to help determine categories of additional and special protection. We're also recommending that large or specimen trees be protected, and that degraded wetlands. So under the current ordinance, there are certain categories of wetlands that become fully exempt from any protection standards without any thought for the kinds of ecological benefits that are being provided, wildlife habitat, et cetera. So while we would be allowing impacts to them through our processes, we would require compensation. So we're adding that category so that we are making it clear that there needs to be a thought process about protection of those resources. Moving on. So the way that graphics works is it's the top half plus the other top half and then deleting the two items on the bottom. So where's my mouse? Okay, there's also some proposed procedural changes. I talked a little bit about how the procedures for the review and approval of natural resource protection plans and impacts to natural resources was extremely cumbersome for developers, members of the community, and also residents who, in many cases, you know, someone wants to put up a shed and there's a wetland buffer there. It can be potentially very confusing and cumbersome to produce information for those requests and then go through the process of obtaining approvals. So the current UDO requires a document called a Natural Resource Protection Plan. I have a later slide that'll just show you one example of what those have looked like. And that Natural Resource Protection Plan usually comes with comes as part of a site plan application. So through a natural resource protection plan with a site plan, you could theoretically obtain approval for woodland impacts up to the allowable protection standard. Everything else requires a natural resource special exception, that 3-meeting public hearing variance process that often results in changes to the required mitigation, et cetera. So 3 approvals with the final approval lying with Common Council, and then a mitigation ratio of 1.5 units of compensation or mitigation for every unit of impact for all natural resources, regardless of their quality, regardless of whether they're invasive species, it doesn't matter. So the proposed natural resource ordinance would continue that standard of allowing for site plan approval with a natural resource protection plan or a PUD, but allow that for a number of additional categories. And so I'll show the table in a second, but we're expanding the options for that. And then also allows for a natural resource special exception process, but our recommendation is that that actually occur within 2 meetings so that Plan Commission, this commission, have the opportunity to review and approve that. And then the mitigation ratio would vary by resource type. So for example, those primary environmental corridors, we would still require a high ratio of protection and mitigation for those, but other categories might be less than 1 unit for one unit of compensation for 1 unit of impact. So,
Mayor?
Commissioner Leon.
Before we go further, can you go back 2 slides? And I did check the draft resolution, and I think it would probably have to be updated, but trees greater than 8 feet, I think is what you mean there.
Oh,
There's another reference. It is in the, I checked, in the draft resolution, it shows the mark for inches rather than feet. So I would think that should this move forward, we want to make sure that it's updated.
it's the diameter of the trunk.
Okay, so the 8 inches is correct. Okay, misread that. Thank you for clarifying.
So you thought height of the
I
tree
did,
being
yeah.
8 inches.
Yeah, I just thought they used the wrong
You were
symbol. I
testing
understand.
us.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yep,
Horizontal.
Thank you, Marion. Please continue.
you're welcome. Now I click on the thing. Okay. So these are, this is the table that is the result of the discussion and the work, and what we're proposing are the new standards. So with information about the types of natural resources and the proposed compensation ratio, and then procedural types. So 1.5 units of compensation for any impact within a primary environmental corridor. I will note the majority of primary environmental corridor, almost without exception, but is owned by the county as part of that floodway that is along the Root River corridor. There's some of it located within the new business park in the southeast corner of the city. But in general, primary environmental corridor means that something is within a floodway and part of a broader corridor. Secondary environmental corridor, which is natural resources that have been evaluated by Sewer PAC but have a slightly different characteristic and are not connected typically to the Root River corridor, would have the 1-to-1 compensation ratio, and then isolated natural resources would have one as well. So, and we can see here, the table is available as well, but wetland buffers, degraded wetlands, any jurisdictional wetlands, et cetera, would all have that 1.5 ratio, and then other natural resource types would be less. So, and you can also, again, see sewer pack environmental corridors of any type, surface water buffers, and other types of surface water would require a special exception where other features would require, like, for example, Woodman's, that site plan or essentially plan commission review for, depending on the development type, but it could also be staff review. So I want to add here that one of the reasons that we have the standards and we're sort of thinking about sewer pack is because it encompasses all of those natural resources. So if something is identified as a sewer pack corridor, it would become the highest standard, or whatever the highest standard applicable would apply, but you wouldn't have to measure everything within that area. You could just say this area is mapped as sewer pack corridor. Sewer pack has provided that information, we can move along. So it does provide a little bit of, right, we currently require people to delineate each and every feature on a site, go out there and have a biologist say all the wetlands are in X, Y, and Z spot, regardless of whether they're requesting permitting about them. All of the woodlands are in these areas, et cetera. So this is, the goal here is to simplify processes and still achieve a development standard that appeals to the community. So this is an example of a natural resource protection plan using the current standards of protection. It has a lot of information about steep slopes in this. So this is the trail system for the Conservancy. These drawings are going to start to look a little bit different. So we'll have different drawings for each feature. We require a table now that is explicitly stated in the draft ordinance so that the information that's provided is clear. These have looked like all different as I've reviewed them. So, and then we also have natural resource protection plan guidance that will be a separate document. So there'll be the protection standards within the UDO and then this additional guidance for developers in order to clarify what is being protected, how they can mitigate for it, but without necessarily having to go to Common Council to amend this. So this was something that we spent a lot of time with Environmental Commission on and put a lot of thought into. So it's provides a lot more definitions of features. So there are things that are named in the current ordinance, but were not defined. It provides clear information about what compensation is required, what it must include. So instead of saying a unit for a unit, you're saying you have to provide native plants, you have to provide wetland appropriate plants, et cetera, and where it can occur. So it requires native species. There is a preferred tree list that was vetted by the city forester and the Environmental Commission. And there are hard boundaries for buffers. So the current ordinance had that two-step setback and buffer. The proposed ordinance has, if it is a buffer, it is a hard buffer, it must have significant vegetative planting, it must have barriers, et cetera, in order to make it clear that this is a no-go zone. It eliminates the like-for-like requirement and allows an expanded menu of options for compensation. So currently, if you impact a wetland buffer, you have to create a wetland buffer, regardless of how feasible that is. It is incredibly difficult to create new wetlands, and that's something that isn't necessarily going to provide benefit on the site for the ecology or for species in the area, and may not be something that could last over time. And so this allows for additional plantings for wetland restoration, which is a request that we have frequently received from developers. If we're going to impact a wetland on our project, can we restore another wetland, remove invasive species, you know, do that kind of work? And under the current ordinance, that would be considered an additional impact. That simplification of processes to allow for off-site compensation. So currently we require mitigation to occur on the same lot as the development unless a waiver is granted by a plan commission. The new ordinance would simplify that process as long as the right kinds of mitigation are being, or compensation are being provided. And then it moves some requirements out of the ordinance and into the administrative code to allow for appropriate updates. So as I mentioned, we talked about native species. There's a plant list in the directions. That's something that the Environmental Commission would be happy to help maintain in their review processes. So that is the totality of Article 8. I can see Mr. Haley has comments, but I think we'd like to continue. We can come back to that.
Can you help me passing the? Can you help me passing the? Okay. Yeah. Thank you. So next is Article 8, subdivision standards. This is mostly applicable to new subdivision projects. New standards with the ordinance will be the cluster development standard. It's currently in the UDO as open space subdivision, but the difference is that the new ordinance will provide for a density bonus of 30% additional units or smaller lots if there are natural resources, like Mary mentioned, on site. So here we have two diagrams. To the left is the conventional sprawl that has larger lots, but it will impact the natural resources. And with the cluster development, we have a smaller lots and keeps the natural resources area protected. Next, please. Another new standard is the interconnectivity index. This is a ratio between intersections and streets, and it's intended to promote connectivity between subdivisions. If there is an adjacent subdivision or lot for future development, the intent is that it will provide connections and in that way promote the interconnectivity between subdivisions. We have a separate presentation that we actually tested this index. So if time allows and the commission wishes, we can do that separate presentation with an actual example. Next, please. New standards, also, as I mentioned before, to promote walkability, new standard for sidewalks, bicycle lanes, street lights, and street trees, please. And as we mentioned before, with illustrations. Article 9, administrative standards. As I mentioned before, the goal here is to streamline the review process. So have examples like for the variances, the NRSC eliminating extra steps, extra meetings, but keeping the public hearing because these are deviations from the kind of the ordinance. So we keep the public hearing. Applications that are similar to others, like the area exception that is really similar to a variance. I explained the previous item that will be eliminated and we'll keep the variance. The zoning administrator may approve site plans subject to area limitations, and this will reduce the permitting process, also the permitting time. The plan commission may approve minor land divisions without dedication of land, and also workflow charts added for clarity. This is an example for conditional uses. Is explain all the process, applications submitted, public hearing notice, plan commission hearing, and common council action. Next, please. The last three articles, the plan development districts, non-conforming buildings, and Article 12 is definition. That's an error in the presentation. There are not really major changes proposed. Just for the definitions, it has the definition from the existing code, but also incorporates any new definition that is required for the new ordinance. Next, please. Okay, so far is the overview of the text of the ordinance. I forgot to mention in the public engagement part that we produced an insert, kind of a public hearing notice that was added to the tax bills. It was distributed to all property owners in the city. And we received public comments in the last few weeks. So then we have some revisions to the text that you have in your packet. These revisions are listed in the cover memo that you have in your packet. And in the handout, there are
Mayor, can I just-
some last-minute revisions.
Mr. Leone.
Can I get clarification on one thing? The memorandum, the cover memo, is that from Josio Levine? It's not our standard, like we have for other cover memos from the city?
Correct, yeah. The
Okay.
cover memo is from Azul Levine, and it has some, I think, 2 notes that were added by staff. But
Thank you
it's
for
a
it.
staff note,
Thank you for pointing that out.
okay?
Thank you, Mr. Leone.
And just to clarify, the handout has some additional revisions that are not listed in the cover memo that we will talk. Okay, and 2 emails from 2 residents. Okay, the revisions in the cover memo we'll go to the highlights. For example, there's a revision to the use table. This is based on a comment from a business owner. Is that we have in the city. This is one example, the building that says N1 of multi-tenant buildings. There are zone N1 that is industrial, but they have received permits in the past or conditional uses for like offices, accounting services, even hair salons. So the revision that we're proposing is to have general office and general services as permitted uses in light industrial district to not create non-conforming uses. Okay, next please. This is a list of revisions in the cover memo. This is basically references, kind of clean up, update reference to section of the municipal code that are currently not existent. So if you Plan Commission have any question about this list, we can provide further details. Okay, so these are revisions not in the cover memo that's providing the handout. These are comments from the engineering department, mostly technical comments with regard to the width of driveway, parking setbacks, retaining walls, street grade. City planning staff have no concerns with the comments from the engineering department. So we're proposing this as revisions to be added to the draft. Okay, and other revisions are kind of ordinance that has been adopted just recently, like the change to the Plan Commission membership to add another person, remove city engineer, other last-minute revisions to retain the membership and organization of the Board of Zoning and Building Appeals. And another change that's kind of is an error in the text is that the natural resource special exception review to eliminate the Common Council meeting and the decision will be up to the Plan Commission. And also to update the name of the Parks and Environmental Commission that was just amended this week. Okay.
It's not done yet.
So that's why it's a revision on, yeah. Okay. Now we can jump to the zoning map. I will do a quick demo of the story map that we have online. The mouse, if it works. Okay. So the consultant has been prepared this story map that will give a quick demo. So it kind of explain all that I have in the presentation from the all these steps, pictures from the public engagement activities. This is available online for residents to see. St. Martin's Fair. And you have the zoning map updates, the existing zoning map. Let me, okay. Okay. and that also the proposed zoning map. So you can actually go. Okay. You can actually go and navigate the proposed zoning map, or also a selection of the parcels that are kind of rezoned, and then you can see what is the designation of your the current designation of your property and what is the proposed designation. And it also go district by district, explaining what is the new district and how many parcels are currently proposed to be zoned to this district and from which existing districts. Then you can see all the parcels that are going to be zoned RC in this example. Then you can zoom in and see what is the current zoning, okay? So this is available online to use. Okay, so now I will go back to the presentation. Okay, there's a formatting error here, sorry for that. So as I mentioned before, consolidate the nearly identical zoning districts and the parcels that are going to be rezoned. It's a total of 21% of the parcel of the city, and in the zoning and the story map, it has the quantity of how many zoning districts are being zoned for each parcel, for each zoning district. Okay. Thank you. Okay, next, please. Okay, this is what we show in the story map. Next, please. Same, next, please. Next, please. This is just screenshots from the story map. Okay, so now revisions to the zoning map based on public comments received recently. There is this parcel, the 9140 South 51st Street, that is zone R1E district. It is the only parcel in the city that has that zoning designation. So this zoning district was created by request of the owner some years ago with an ordinance. So, and it provides some specific standards like different building height and different standards for fences that are allowed in all yards, while normally they're not allowed in the front yard. So what staff is proposing is to eliminate this R1E zoning district and bring all these standards to planned development districts. So in that way, all the approvals, the vested rights are preserved, but we eliminate the R1 zoning district. However, the option preferred by the owner is to retain the R1E zoning district. And in the handout, there is an email from the owner with all the reasons. Okay. And another option is to rezone to multifamily. That will preserve the right to have more than one unit, but it will limit the building height and the fences. So we don't recommend the second option. Next, please. Another revision to the zoning map per public comments is these three lots that are shaded green. That's an error that we notice in the zoning map because they're proposed to be as parks, and the revision is to have it just as suburban resident, just like the other surrounding parts. And this is actually used for single family. I just to finish, I want to thank Jackie with Azula being the consultant. They have provided all the deliverables, and she offered to donate this time for this meeting. So thank you, Jackie.
You're more than welcome. I'm so happy to get this project across the finish line.
Mr. Leone.
Mayor, considering that we're an hour 20 into the meeting. We have a good crowd tonight. I would like to propose a brief recess before we get to public comment. Allow people time to gather their thoughts if they're going to speak on the matter and maybe stretch their legs, myself included.
I
So,
was going to say, are you looking to stretch your legs?
yes,
Mr.
I
Leon?
am. So I move that we take a 10-minute recess.
All right, how about this? It's 7:20 PM. It's actually 7:21 now. Let's come back at 7:30 PM.
Do we need a
7:30
motion?
PM. No motion needed. All right, want to take us off? Hearing notice.
The City of Franklin proposes to repeal and replace its UDO and zoning map. The UDO update process began in 2021 with the goal of streamlining and modernizing the city's current UDO, which was adopted in 1998. 1998, yeah. A major component of the update includes consolidating redundant zoning districts to make the UDO and zoning map more user-friendly. This remapping action is not intended to downzone properties, affect property rights, or limit development potential. Rather, it is intended to improve clarity around allowable uses, reduce confusion, and increase alignment between the UDO regulations and the type of development on the ground in Franklin. Hearing date Thursday, January 23rd, 2025 at 6 p.m. at the Commonwealth City Chambers at Franklin City Hall, 9229 West Loomis Road, Franklin, Wisconsin, 53132. This public hearing is being held pursuant to the requirements of Wisconsin Statutes 6223(7)(d)(2) and Division 1590200 of the Unified Development Ordinance. The proposed ordinance and zoning map are available at the Department of City Development at Franklin City Hall. The public is invited to attend the public hearing and to provide input. The proposed ordinance is subject to revisions following the public hearing and further consideration by the Plan Commission and the Common Council.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Martinez. Before we move in and move forward, just a few things. Number one, Commissioner Specht, who sits down on the end, Rebecca Specht, her father passed this morning, Mr. John Begansky. And for those that you know, John, he's instrumental in the Franklin Senior Lunch Program. He runs it. Wonderful human being, wonderful citizen of our community, huge loss, and we wish the family the best. Number two, there are two members that sat on this committee for this whole rewrite, Ms. Dana Gint. So she's to be recognized for her hard work and diligence, and former Alderwoman Kristen Wilhelm. Thank you both very much. It is a daunting task. I thank our planning department, Kelly Hirsch, Director of Administration. We've all had a piece in this, but that is who carried the major load on this. It's a big ordeal. It's been going on for years. Hopefully, we're getting close to that end time, and we can benefit the city and streamline a lot of processes. With that said, I will be opening up the hearing. For those that wish to speak, come to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Please, we're not. Our goal is to move this along. Please be respectful of other people's time. Time for the commissioners, time for staff. So if you have your points, please make them directly. If staff can answer them, they will answer them at the end of the public hearing. If they can't, they will then get with the questions and answer period tomorrow or the next day, just so they can get it done. But we want to move this along tonight as far as a public hearing goes. So I understand there's plenty of viewpoints. We all respect each other's viewpoints, but we also have to respect each other's time, please. So with that said, it's 7:34 p.m. I'll now open the public hearing. So, ma'am, good evening. Welcome. You want to pull that mic down and just state there you go.
Sure. Mary Ann Zielinski, 7961 West Park Circle Way. I have two concerns. My first concern is what would be the property that would be 76th and Ryan Road. It would be behind Zerns. There is 66 acres, and those 66 acres were originally, when I bought the house over in that area, was listed as institutional. And I believe it was still institutional. It was owned by the Archdiocese originally, those 66 acres, and then it was turned over to, or bought by the Franklin School District, and they still own that. And now with the rezoning, the question that I have is, out of those 66 acres, if you look at the property, so behind Zerns, there is institutional, and then all of a sudden there's a block where they put in light industrial, and then it goes back to institutional. And in my kind of look at that, it doesn't make sense why you're cutting off that in the middle. So you've got institutional, then light industrial and institutional. So I'd like to have someone get back to me, if nothing else, regarding what was the logic behind putting in that light industrial. The second concern that I have is we are listed as the multiple unit residence, and I did talk to Mr. Is it Martinez?
Martinez, yeah.
And I had talked to him on the phone, and we talked about the fact, I said, by putting that as being multiple unit residence, does that mean that that's all that can be built there? And he said, no, there was a change, and at this point now they're going to be allowing single-family residents to be in that area. And what I would like to propose is, because when you see that and you look at the zoning map and you say, oh, that's multiple unit, there's kind of like a preconceived notion, oh, it's just apartments, you know, we're not going to build in that area, I don't want to live in that area. What we would like to do, because of the area that we're in, we'd like to obviously have single-family units as well as multiple family units. So I was hoping to propose that if it is correct what he told me about having single-family residences available to be built there, that it could be changed to say multiple unit and single-family residence, instead of just multiple unit residence. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Hello.
Good evening. My name is Linda De Arteaga. I live at 7396 South Williams Court. Try again.
Just come a little closer, just so the whole group can hear.
Okay. Right on it. Okay. Linda De Arteaga, 7396 South Williams Court, Franklin. I'm here about our family's property that is at 8495 West Loomis Road. My concern about that. On your new map, this proposed zoning map, we are zoned as residential as well as all the properties adjacent to us. But my concern is that when I tried to compare the map to the most accessible map, which was the future land use map, they were not aligned. When I tried to access the interactive map that Mr. Martinez showed, it's not as accessible as looking at the future land use map, and it's kind of like one property at a time. You can't really see the vision all at once, if you understand what I'm saying. Probably you do, right?
Yeah, I tried to load it and had the same similar issue.
So it's very, and it's tiny and it's very difficult. But my concern is that, you know, our property is, these properties are not small parcels. They're located along a main highway with plenty of frontage. And we don't want to see them change their current future land use of commercial / possibly mixed use. If our land is seen on a map as moderate density suburban residential, it may be overlooked by future developers. I'm certain there is other land that can be developed as residential. I don't doubt that. Let's see, just trying to shorten my letter here. So for 20 years, my family was not able to build a home on our land due to the future land use plan of commercial. While we understand that the city of Franklin wants to eliminate excess zoning districts, we want to be assured our property's future land use and commercial mixed use will be preserved and be accessible to developers. Right now, you know, this new map, you know, I don't know where that's going to go and how accessible that is, you know, which one's going to be seen by who, you know, like that interactive one, that wasn't accessible, really. That was not a good map. It appears that the city of Franklin has reduced or underestimated the importance of the maps for developers and landowners. We trusted Franklin with their vision for commercial land use of our property for over 20 years. We need a commitment from city officials of Franklin for their vision, that their vision has not changed. It is time to connect our properties to the community with roads and walkways in a way that does not unnecessarily increase the total tax burden. It would be helpful to have a zoning map that is more accessible to compare and contrast. And I'm sure it's probably too late for that, but
It's not too late.
not too late. Okay. This would alleviate the confusion to me, the public. And so my questions are, for the future, can we be assured that our land will remain as commercial mixed use on the next future land use map and be the accessible map, the map that the developers see? And will the future land use map remain? I said that already. So that's it. That's my concern.
They'll be, she has your card, somebody's card for follow-up.
Yeah, it's
Thank you, ma'am.
Hi. Again, Sam Schultz, Von Briesen and Roper, 411 East Wisconsin Avenue in Milwaukee. I'd like to express my support for the ordinance in three ways. The first is as representing a current landowner who owns land along Ryan Road opposite one of your business parks. Between reviewing the current zoning that affects that property and the regulations within and the new draft zoning text that would affect that property, I've advised that client to wait until the new text is adopted, both for what they would like to accomplish for the property. They've owned it for a long time and they have a vested interest in making a great development in the city of Franklin. And I think the new text does a lot more to accomplish those goals from both the private side and the municipal side. Secondly, as someone who has gone through the development process here, your staff is great, but it is quite bureaucratic. I like to see the efficiencies in here. The natural resources special exemption process in particular, some of the streamlining of that would be greatly appreciated for those who have to go through it without, sacrificing any of the strong environmental standards that are within the ordinance. And then finally, as a planner who works in Southeast Wisconsin as a member of the American Institute of Certified Planners, someone who teaches this at UWM in the graduate program, and someone who practices as a municipal planner on the municipal side, I think one of the things that is most important is setting the new framework for this code. It moves Franklin forward in a way that I think benefits everyone, but also sets up a framework and a process to more easily update it as market conditions change, as elected official preferences change, or as the community preferences change in the long run. I think that's an underrated aspect of updating this kind of ordinance and framework. You'll be able to keep this more current by updating it to this framework. So again, support for all those reasons. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good evening.
Hello. Joe Haslow, owner of 9140 South 51st Street. You have a letter to the planning manager from me. By the way, Planning Manager Martinez, thank you for your time Monday. It's very helpful. So in short, our parcel is the one that is the only estate parcel in the city. It was zoned that way back in 2013, conditional for our purchase. We weren't going to buy it unless it was rezoned because we had specific intended uses for it. The parcel has been set to preserve its natural features very, very carefully, field delineation study, a whole pile of stuff that we did very intentionally. And we are now on the cusp of ripping down the main house to replace it with something that is much more appropriate for the magnificent parcel that it is, and also not disturb any of the natural features because we think that's really, really important. So I do not remember why Planning Manager Deedle suggested the zoning and the text amendment at the time versus a PDD. It's been a long time, but that was his strong recommendation back then, which is why we wanted to have it preserved. Not asking to have it replicated anywhere else, just want to be able to do what we are doing in the parcel and not lose any of what was specified because they were specified very, very intentionally. The fence in the front is so that there can be a gate in the front, but it doesn't obstruct any of the wildlife from running. It's intended for some of that, and then along the back and the back of the other drive. So that said, I'm going to stop. Does anyone have any, I don't know if you can ask me questions. If there are any questions on what was written in the email. I don't want to take too much time.
Well, I think to answer your question, if there is, we'll go through staff. And if you've been working with Mr. Martinez, I've read it. It was provided to us. It's very well written. I understand your concerns. I'm glad you worked with Mr. Martinez, but
Yeah,
if there are any, we wouldn't engage like this. It's a hearing for you, and then we'll,
sure. Okay, fair.
I mean, if somebody jumps out crazy, we'll do
Yeah.
that during the response time.
Okay.
Because after the public hearing's closed, then staff will respond to what they can tonight. If not, they'll follow up with the residents after that.
Yeah, so in the letter, you saw a few things. We are pretty far down the path. Commissioner Haley's familiar with our property. We are ripping down the house where it is. We're putting the new house in the same place. You made the comment years ago that they put the house in the best spot. They put the house in the best spot. So we're going to be using that spot so we can preserve the trees and everything else like we've been doing. But this house is going to be a little nicer. If you're familiar with King Fogel, there's one other house in the city built by them. It's in Wyndham Hills. They're nice. That's all I've got to say. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening. Linda Mathwake, 7321 Brun Drive. I believe I need to inform this commission and those attending at home that I'm running for the aldermanic candidate for District Number 5.
Thank you.
I can tell that the members here from the presentation have put extensive time and effort into this rewrite of the UDO. Thank you for your time. The work that you have done is phenomenal. One comment I do want to make is most citizens in the city are not even aware that a UDO exists. I would ask the Planning Commission in the future to do more of an effort to inform the residents of the city, of this city and what's going on in it. I was just made aware this week that there was an open house on December 9th. I am very active on the website. I'm not quite sure how I missed it, but I would have liked to participate in that. To me, communication is the key. But again, I want to thank you. I'm optimistic that this will add clarity to the UDO. Thank you.
Which, are you talking the open house that we had over here?
I think it was December 9th.
Was that, I mean, it was pretty well attended. I don't know how. Could you say a little louder, ma'am, right in the speaker? Because I will dispute that with you, because there was plenty of people here, so I don't know how you personally didn't know.
I don't know how it was announced, that I didn't see some type of announcement
No.
regarding it.
There were plenty here.
No, we have well, this meeting was in the tax bills for the open house. We have boards that we have at City Hall. So.
But if
bef-
somebody is at home and doesn't come into City Hall, how would they be made aware that this open house was being held?
We also had it in the website.
Okay.
So
I
and
don't know
flyers.
if it would have been, you sent us
Yep.
out the public hearing announcement. Maybe something on that would have helped if we could have had open house will be held on December 9th. Just
Right.
So people would be aware, and citizens need to become more aware of what is happening in our city. So,
Well, with that, again, could you please repeat loudly in here, sir, the 3 ways that people were made aware of this? Because it was a pretty busy house in there.
Right. Posted with boards here at City Hall, flyers, and the information was on the website.
On our website, okay.
and the flyers were located where?
Planning department.
Okay.
And few weeks before the open house, I presented an update before the Common Council Plan Commission, informed of the upcoming open house.
Thank you.
I appreciate your time.
Good evening, sir.
Evening. Bruce Kanieski, Kaniewski, 7719 West Coventry Drive. And good evening, everybody. As meetings go, this is really a short meeting.
Not over yet.
Right. But anyways, okay. I'm standing here encouraging you that I am very supportive of the rewrite. It's long overdue. As being a person that was involved with the first UDO way back when. The And I congratulate the consultant and staff. I know it's time consuming, even though there's a consultant. I know how long it takes for this, staff to deal with the consultant and coordinate with the task force and all the other people in the city involved with it. I have several points for your consideration. Just short, hopefully I'll run through it. And then I have a ending question for the city attorney. But he probably should already anticipate my question. But anyways, just for, I don't have no comments, yay or nay, for the accessory dwelling provision in the ordinance. But as a longtime citizen of the city of Franklin, I'm going to sit back and have fun watching reaction from neighbors as the first and second and the third proposal for that will be submitted and come to public hearing. I think everybody knows what I'm talking about. But I just have several questions if you thought about this, because as many of you know in this room that know me, I'm a big picture guy and I look at what action has a reaction. I'm just wondering if it's been thought through for these accessory dwellings. Is there going to be a separate water meter, garbage pickup? Are there going to be extra garbage and recycling bins? I know just in my immediate neighborhood, about half the neighbors can't follow directions and put out their bins correctly, and they don't even put them out in the right direction. They put them backwards and put them next to each other. And so how's that going to work? And with your refuse contract with John's, how's that going to work with additional customers? Unlike adding a new subdivision. So that's just one thing I suggest you think about. I do have a question, even get back to me, staff. In a previous draft, I believe the November draft, planning of developments were going to be eliminated. But I believe I just read this afternoon in the draft that was in your packet that they're back in, and Mr. Martinez commented they're back in. So I just like to get that in my mind, just knowing what's going on with that. Also, this question, I looked for this and I might have missed it in the draft, but the current regulations for side yard setback for sheds 150 square feet or less is 5 feet. I'm just wondering if that's going to continue. And I have a vested interest because I'm interested in putting a shed up in my yard. But anyways, one last thing before I get to the question of the city attorney. In all the backup materials that I have reviewed, and granted, I did not read every page verbatim. There's a lot of material out there, and which is great. That's fine. But I did not see. I saw very few references, and not enough, in my opinion, of references of conformance with the comprehensive plan. The current UDO matched the mid-1990s comprehensive plan almost to a T. And that was even before the 1999 state law mandating conformance between zoning and the comprehensive plan. As an example, in the current UDO, why have a civic center zoning district? Well, the civic center land use within the comprehensive plan was a direction from the Common Council, and especially the mayor at that time. So we created a zoning district for that. Prime Ag, at that time, during the 1990s, 4 farmers received farmland preservation tax credits from the state. And to get that tax credit, you needed zoning to have a minimum lot size of 35 acres. That's why there's a prime ag district. I'm sure those farmers and no longer get, ask or even ask for that farmland preservation tax credit anymore. If it's still available, I don't really know. So just making sure that there is some consistency, as the previous person alluded to speaking this evening. And then, but I suggest strongly in the adoption ordinance for the new UDO, you have language in the ordinance that I have written with village attorneys elsewhere, especially in Waukesha County, that put in ordinances referencing conformance between the comp plan and the zoning or the new UDO. And my only motivation for this as a citizen, just the protection of the city from lawsuits. That's the only thing I'm thinking of. And my last question for the city attorney is section 15-5-03, section specifically subsections C and D cover buffer yards. So, and I appreciate those buffer yard requirements in the ordinance, but with adoption of this ordinance, do prior buffer yard agreements between the Plan Commission and property owners remain intact? And you can get back to me, Jesse, on that one. So, that's it. Thank you very much, and good work.
Thank you, sir. Good evening.
Good evening. Kristen Wilhelm, 3851 West College Avenue. So I agree with Mr. Kaniewski on the comprehensive master plan and the land use plan that don't seem to go together. And I think that was done a little bit backwards, but here we are. And I appreciate everyone's work on this. Hopefully it will turn out to be a good thing. I do have a few concerns. I can't go over all the positives. There are many, but I wonder about when the city of Franklin went from the 1998 UDO from the previous ordinance that was in place, they used a specific numbering. It matched the municipal code, which was, it leaves off that this section 15 comes from. My concern with how we're doing the numbering here is you're going to have things like Mr. Kaniewski just brought up about things that are existing, and you're going to have all kinds of ordinance and resolutions out there that already use the same numbering, 15-04, 15 I'm thinking it might be better to have some other kind of designation so staff can distinguish between what was adopted during the 98 ordinance, which is updated in 2004, I think it was, and the current one you're adopting, or you're going to have way too much confusion. Also, I would suggest that when you start doing your plan commission recommendations and stuff, the research is done, and put right in resolutions that this adopts this changes this ordinance, so there's a nice history to follow, which has been lacking on some of the reports lately. So as far as the land use map and versus a public hearing upon each individual land uses that are changed, which is the current process. When something comes in for a rezone, the people get notified. When Alderwoman Mayer was up there, she had specifics for distances that were increased to let more people know. Most of the people in this community, I'm going to guess, don't understand that with one fell swoop of adopting this ordinance, you are also going to adopt the land use map plan, which will eliminate individual notification for each of those lands. I would suggest that you select those properties that you are going to be changing and follow the current ordinance that says that you should let them individually know before you do that adoption. The next thing is just, there are so many different comments I could make on this, and I couldn't read them all. Would you please change the section on the website so people know you can click on the UDO and download it, because it's not a clickable looking link. It's just not colored. All the links are clickable in blue except for the one for the UDO. So that needs to be changed. Otherwise, I wouldn't have found it without some direction talking with someone else on the phone. So an example in the outdoor dining section, the use of outdoor dining areas shall be limited to the posted operational hours of the associated eating and drinking use. Okay, so if you leave the wording like that, drinking uses, bars can be open to 2 o'clock in the morning. I think that that wording should be defined so you don't have outdoor hours. And also you need to determine if you're going to have music that follows that same standard. In the current ordinance, it says that music and outdoor situations shall be allowed within 1,000 feet of a residential area. There was one that came before the Plan Commission that was going to approve that. I think they even did approve it right next to a big apartment complex with outdoor music on the patio. So I would like you to reconsider that residential feet zoning for outdoor music because you have enough noise complaints. On the environmental section, of course, you talked about that you have changed the Environmental Commission and combined it with the Park Commission. Little history on that for those that don't know. Parks and Environmental were combined. Parks was dissolved. That's when I got involved in the Environmental Commission. It was brought back and created. I see very little similarities between Milwaukee County Parks and Environmental and City of Franklin Parks and Environmental because Milwaukee County has a lot of natural resources that they own, as Marion X pointed out, that they own almost all of the primary environmental corridor in the City of Franklin. You're going to have what we had before, Parks Commission people concerned about building playgrounds and tot lots, and environmental people concerned about environmental issues, and they're going to be leaving the meetings because one's not going to want to hear the other. So be aware of that, probably is going to be coming. You might have to find some other resolution for that. So also when we bring up the staff shall make a recommendation to the Environmental Commission part about that, and now I see it's going to be a natural resource protection plan that will eliminate the council. And I disagree with that. Our elected officials are our voice for each of the residents, representing about 6,000 apiece, and they need to hear the residents speak, and oftentimes Planning Commission doesn't have enough time to speak. The primary and secondary environmental corridors, which were outlaid in this map, and I think this is Plan 176 by Sewer Pact. This is a great map. You should be having this posted around so developers can see where these are. People can see where these are mapped. There was a comment made that they've mapped them all. They have not mapped them all. Carity Prairie is a perfect example of a historic resource that was missed by Sewer Pact. I was the one who walked the site when that was
Could you say
moved
that
out.
site again, please?
The Carity Prairie, which is inside Prairie Grass Preserve subdivision.
Thank you.
So this document points out that in 1989, there was 17% of the isolated and primary environmental and secondary environmental corridors or natural resources left in the City of Franklin. I've done my own little surveys verbally with people. What would you like to see your community have when it's fully developed? How much green space? How much natural resources? Most of the people came up with they would be happy with 25%. So in this document, 36 years ago, we only had 17. So if you really want to protect these resources, allowing encroachment and dissection of the wildlife movement areas is not ever going to get you even to 25% when you're already way below it. Let's see. So one of the larger concerns I have is with Article 3 and Article 9, the permitted use, limited conditional use, which apparently took the place of special use, which I understand that's a kind of a state law issue, and temporary uses. The section 15-0304 talks about permitted uses with a P in the table, and that uses that are marked with a P in the table shall be allowed subject to all applicable regulations in the UDO. The other things that spell out exactly what those are. This one doesn't. And what one of those things are that is not spelled out is this includes anything 50,000 square feet is only approved, or it goes only through staff. So it doesn't even come to the Plan Commission. And by being in that chart, it says that basically, let's see, use is not listed. So if it's not there, like a slaughterhouse, that the zoning administrator shall determine the use if it's suitable. I think those definitions that are not listed, that should be the Plan Commission, or it should be the Common Council, or it should be something more public. I understand the need to make things smoother, but I also understand your obligation as a government is to have public openness. And I don't see that as having everything done inside as being as open as it could be. It also, for any proposed development that results in a change or addition of 1,000 square feet or more, the zoning administration gives a review to the Plan Commission. So we talked about the 50,000, I talked about it 50,000 square feet. That is over an acre. And this one, now you're talking about being over 2 acres. So I would like some more consideration on if you think that is too much, if you want to cut that down a little bit. I think that the residents would really like that. I would like to see you limit the number of contingencies going forward on your resolutions. And when you get, a developer comes in, they get all the way through their approvals and you add on 13 contingencies and they're a cumbersome thing to follow up. Example would be approval of a stormwater plans contingent on engineering, doing that, and then they find out, oh, you don't have enough space. And then they say, oh, wait a minute, we've got all our approvals. Then it becomes political, which then the mayor gets the pressure. So I think less contingencies, resolving things up front would be a good thing. I didn't see the ability to petition, for residents to petition. That seems to be, have been removed. That petitioning for residents is a lot of work, and I've seen several of them in my time as an older person. It takes knocking on doors, it takes getting people willing to sign, it takes a lot, and it gives the people an extra voice, and it pushes the council to force 5 votes. If you remove that, you remove the citizens' ability to petition their elected officials. So please let me know if that is included or have been removed. A little bit more on the natural resource special exception. I was at the meeting when they were going over that. I did not agree with the use of surface waters. I have sat here several times and looked up what the definition of surface waters are. And this is listed under NR 103. And it says surface water means all natural and artificial named and unnamed lakes and all natural flowing streams within the boundaries of the state, but not including cooling lakes, ponds, and facilities constructed for the treatment of wastewater. Okay, so if you put in the word surface water, you're covering the federal protections, which are waters of the state, navigable waters, but you're not covering much of the isolated. Now, granted, some of it will be inside of environmental corridors, but surface waters do not seem to cover, because it's water on the surface, an ephemeral wetland, which dries out. Fitzsimmons Woods, with Mr. Haselow was here, he was involved in the protection of that, has 13 ephemeral wetlands inside of it. Would your ordinance cover that significant resource? It doesn't seem to. Also, I didn't understand the part about land adjoining TIDs where you didn't need a natural resource protection plan. And I disagree with the no natural resource protection plan approval by the Common Council.
Sorry, you don't agree with that?
I disagree that you should, I don't think you should be taking the council out of that process for that.
Taking the council out of that process.
That's correct.
Right.
They should be doing that. In fact, I think that a lot of the things, I know your idea is to make this easier on staff, and I know your idea is to make this easier on developers and make the process smoother.
And citizens.
Right. However, you still need to have people's ability to be able to find out about things. And if your staff is making the decisions on 50,000 square feet as being a permitted use or whatever, or 100,000 square feet as a change, if it comes, they're not down in this planning department. They're not going to find out about it. So that's my concern with that. So there are other comments, but I've taken up enough of your time, and I thank you for listening.
And Alderwoman, if by chance you want to continue the conversation or put something in email form to staff and myself, those will be incorporated as well, because I appreciate your time and everything that you've done.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Ms. Kent.
Good evening, Dana Gint, 9011 West Hawthorne Lane. I will try to address the questions that I have as quickly as possible. In one of the first Planning Commission meetings with the UDO, there was a section that talked about vested interests or properties that have already been approved previously. And now I see it's missing from this updated UDO. So I'm wondering, how is that being addressed? Are there, and there's not really a clear clarification, maybe the city attorney can help with this, like non-conforming new uses or illegal non-conforming uses, all those kind of terms. And we all know what property I'm talking about, so I won't even say it. And then it talks about vested interests is on, it's section 15-406, I believe is what that says. All these, I agree with former Alderman Wilhelm that this numbering system is very confusing. So it's 15-406. In one of the first Planning Commission meetings, it talked about vested rights and it talked about pre-existing properties. So that's what I'm asking, because that's gone now. So I don't know how that's being addressed. I did send an email to the Planning Commission members earlier today with some comments on certain sections. I guess my primary focus is obviously protecting natural resources, neighborhoods, and parks from adverse impacts, which is obviously something that I've lived with for a decade. So there's terms that I think should be clarified in more detail, like the impact on surrounding uses and things like that, which is what I covered in my email. Something that concerns me is that I see at the open house, and the open house was not posted on your calendar, the city calendar. So if you have any open houses or future town hall meetings, I believe it should be listed on your just the calendar.
How do you find out about it?
Because I go to all the meetings,
Yes, you do.
but that doesn't mean other people go. I mean, I don't go look at the bulletin board. I just go to every meeting, John, as you know.
Goes to you.
Oh, no. No, I'm in charge of the bulletin board. No, I'm just kidding. But during the open house meeting, we pointed out, several of our citizens pointed out that there's a chart here that says public interest and special events, and it's listed as a temporary use. I was informed that that was going to be removed, and I still see it in the table. So obviously that's very concerning to me, because there should be no special uses and special interest, public interest, special events regarding any type of existing approvals. That's totally unacceptable. And it goes into, I mean, maybe if it's temporary uses, but it even goes into more detail in the temporary use section. What section is this? This is in Article 4. It says special events are limited to 6 events per year, not exceeding 14 days each. Seriously, you guys, like, right. And that's considered a temporary use. I mean, if it's talking about Christmas tree sales at Home Depot, that's totally different than the special event reference in the other page. So I'm just saying that's very concerning and needs to be clarified. I do have additional pages. I've been asking for 5 years to have performance standards that include outdoor speakers. So I did write up a section kind of using the lighting, outdoor lighting section as a template. And the way I put in here basically the speaker information that I found from researching all different kinds of sound studies that were performed and their recommendations about directional speakers and short throw speakers and all that stuff. So I did type up a recommendation to have outdoor speaker systems as part of the design standard, because it is a design standard. It is same as lighting and everything else. And it's not something that the police department is going to go enforce what kind of speaker is sitting there or what kind of design or engineering was involved in doing that. I understand the police enforces the noise levels, but the planning department should be reviewing, and obviously we should hopefully learn from our past experiences and mistakes that there was no design standards related to outdoor acoustic systems. So that is something that I strongly recommend be included. And I also made revisions to the outdoor sound study recommendation for future development. I want to understand if the existing PDD for the Rock is going to complete their comprehensive sound study. It is located on page 18 that the comprehensive sound study would be completed. And obviously that's been in there since 2018. So I don't know if there's some language, which I put in my recommendations, that any existing properties that were required to do a sound study should have that completed. And I also believe that anything that creates an adverse impact should have an environmental impact assessment. It's very common and can help address environmental issues, adverse impacts for people, and things like that. That's something that could be universally applied to anything that creates a possible nuisance or adverse impact on surrounding areas. So I will hand you these documents to show you what I've put together, and I can email them also, but I'd appreciate it if you consider putting these into the PDO.
And if you don't mind, do you have the ability to scan them and send them to all of us?
Sure, I could try to do that, yeah.
I mean, that's how I would.
That's easier. Okay, because I did send an email with some minor changes earlier today. But I didn't realize that this temporary.
Let me be more specific because
Send it
I
to staff.
send it to staff, please.
To staff.
Include me in that.
Okay, I will do that. But I was just concerned because has this been removed from the UDO? This was stated that at the open house that this temporary use special event section was being removed. I spoke with you and the
Well,
consultant.
and
I can reply to.
The replies will come
Okay.
after this hearing. time.
Okay, because there were several people there. I mean, I know there were some planning commission members that I appreciate that attended. So those are my comments, and I appreciate your time. And it is quite a massive project. And I do agree with former Alderman Wilhelm that the natural resource protection should go to the Common Council because the Planning Commission obviously does not normally have public comment, and the elected officials are who we voted for to support our opinions, so that they should be able to vote on the natural resources protection plans. Thank you.
And in all seriousness, thank you for all the work and time that you put in and research. Thank you. And Alderwoman Wilhelm, thank you for that as well. Seeing anyone else wishing to speak? Going twice, seeing no one else. I will close it at 8:18 p.m. The hearing is now closed. Open up for discussion. Mr. Haley, would you like to start? Because you've got a plethora of notes, or would you want to defer for a moment to?
I'll defer to anybody else, but
Are you ready?
I mean,
I
took the
am
time and read
prepared.
through all this stuff.
Okay, how about we'll go with Mr. Leone first,
Do it.
and you can get your stuff there, and then we can, Mr. Leone, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for everyone who came out to speak tonight. I want to get to a couple of things that I think are real positive, and I'll start it this way. So, former Alder Wilhelm and Ms. Gent, I frequently don't agree, but tonight I very strongly agree with some of their most important points. That the NRSE should stick with council, despite it lengthening the process, and that the zoning administrator should not have the decision-making authority that's proposed in this development ordinance, and that, to Ms. Gint's point, open houses should be listed on the city's calendar for people to check on those. Firmly agree with all of those things. Conversely, so I do intend to abstain from this vote. It's different than some of my perspective on recent agenda items before this, but I believe that the ordinance and the passing of the ordinance, we've gotten a consultant to propose many things. We've had a lot of input from staff. There have been the open houses, but I believe that it is not the place of this body as the Plan Commission to endorse or even potentially endorse against a change to the ordinance. I believe it's the purpose of this body to interpret whatever ordinance is before us and focus on the best use of land. So again, when this comes up for a vote, please make sure that it is, the vote is roll call vote, but then propose it. I know we had some issues last time. So, but yeah, I do at this point intend to abstain, and very unlikely that'll change. While I believe former Alder Wilhelm was talking, did say something about the website and the ordinance rewrite. I did check on the mobile app quickly. It was a blue hyperlink there. I don't know if it's different on the full city's website. I'm just wondering if there's a way to look now. But, you know, I think the point is fair that if we want residents to go to the city's website, yeah, and that does look to me like a blue hyperlink there on there. So is it beyond there? Okay, maybe I didn't understand the former Alder's comment, but if you click on that. Okay. And again, maybe I didn't understand exactly what former Alder Wilhelm was getting at there, but I think that it did direct to the right place, if I understood correctly.
Yes.
Okay.
There is an issue with the story map that when you go to the proposed zoning map, I have an issue now that it doesn't load the zoning map, proposed zoning map layer.
We'll get it
Okay.
fixed.
So anyway,
We'll get it
and
fixed,
again,
okay?
maybe I just misunderstood. One, I think I got to my main points here. I guess two more things. I will dispute one thing that Ms. Gint said earlier. The Plan Commission frequently holds public hearings on any agenda item that it requires. So while I agree that many issues like this need to go to council because those are the elected officials, we are an advisory body. We frequently hold public hearings here. You've attended many times, as have others here. So when something like an NRSE comes up, I think statutorily, we have to hold a public hearing on the matter. So that public hearing is held here, and I think it should continue to be held with council. And just about the communication of this to the city, I know it came up several different ways, you know, posted here at City Hall, on the city's website, and flyers available in the planning department. But as any resident in any community wants to be involved, you got to come to City Hall. You've got to be involved as a resident so that if you have questions, comments, complaints, suggestions, whatever they are, be present, to include running for office, as one speaker mentioned tonight. But that's not the only way to do it. I'll use this as an opportunity to endorse for our many boards and commissions here. If you want to be involved, if you're listening to this later, please talk with your alder and offer your expertise for commissions like this so that you can have your input and then obviously come to meetings. Last comment to one of my neighbors over there on Coventry Drive, but some of the stuff about the development of subdivisions and things that go on that I didn't quite follow, to do with like barrel placement on there. I don't think the UDO would get at that, but I did want to make the point that he said some of his neighbors didn't put their barrels out there. I think my barrels are normally put out properly so that they can be lifted by John's, but anyway, I kid. My point was, I'm not sure that was relevant. You know, the subdivisions would be able to be developed, be proposed under this ordinance. But again, after all that said, it remains my intent to abstain from this vote so that the council, the elected officials, are the ones who own this decision. So with that, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Leone. Commissioner Haley.
Thank you. First, I would like to thank staff and everybody involved. This was a daunting task. Better than 5 years we've been working on this. You've stuck with it, and I think the product you've come up with shows that it's very good. I like the graphics, a lot of what you're doing, I like the consolidation. Very few things that I don't like. So we'll try and talk about those, and I'll try and get through it because I could go at this for hours. I did take the time to read all this. It's a great document. Well, I'll only touch on the things that maybe jumped out at me, and maybe we get some clarification on them. Okay. Start at the top. Article 2, prime agricultural districts. I've mentioned this before. We got some great insight from Mr. Kineski. I don't know why we have those and how we determined what those are. The indication seems to be that there's some history, that things that were designated as prime ag in the past, it's just filtered on through and that they're still there. I don't know what the criteria is that differentiates the two. And as I had suggested, I don't think that we need either, that it should just be one or the other. It should be agricultural. But if we're going to designate areas as prime ag, that should be based upon criteria like the type of soil, the quality, the production abilities, and actual conversations with the property owners. Many of the property owners in the southern part of Franklin are looking forward to development day when they can sell this property and make money. If that's their intent, then why encumber it with prime agricultural and all these other things, okay? So I would like to either know the rationale for it or just do away with it. When I look at the proposed zoning map, and I still have issues with this, I know I've talked with you all on several of these, there's a lot of discrepancies, if you will, and I didn't realize that I have the opportunity of using the story map app that would look at some of this because it's difficult to read at this level. A lot of things are obscured by line weight. I would also suggest that we do something with the color scheme to some extent. It may be my eyes, but the different yellows are almost impossible to discern in different areas, whether it requires patch patterns or something. For someone looking at it at this scale, it's very difficult to understand it. I know that you can get it and zoom in there. Let's find a way to clean that up. So I don't want to go through all the details. I'd be willing to sit down with staff again and talk about my concerns with the proposed zoning map again. They've made several corrections that I found. I think they're there, but it should reflect where we want to be. And as has been said by others, it should also reflect our master plan. I'm disappointed that we didn't start there. What is the vision for the city? Where are we going? We're trying to adjust the words, the text around it, but you know, where do we want development? Are we setting a higher priority on infill? Do we care about ag lands? Those are all important questions that I think should have been addressed first, but we're tackling it backwards, and that's not a reflection on staff. It's policy direction given by the elected officials, whatever. We should have a very crisp vision of what Franklin wants to look like in 5 or 10 years, and the public should support that. We've heard a lot of anecdotal stuff. Let's clean that one up.
Madam Director of Administration, please.
By all means.
Should be good.
You're on.
Okay. I just wanted to speak to that. We do realize that this is in reverse, and this, as you said, was a policy decision that was made many years ago when this started. However, I did want to let everybody know that part of the budget for 2025 is to do the comprehensive master plan that is outdated, and that is the next project.
And then potentially some updates to the UDO based upon that.
Correct.
We're all on the same page, you know, little bites. Okay, the issue with surface waters and text, let's just figure out what it is and use it consistently. There's talk to rivers in here. It jumps all over, and I'm educated on this stuff, and I have a hard time following it. So let's have whatever those 5 key phrases are, get them in the definitions, and let's use them universally. Okay, miscellaneous districts, I got surface waters, I got rivers, I got woodlands, open space. And we're still in section 2 here, zoning of annexed land. Do we really envision that Franklin will be annexing any land anytime in the future? We are surrounded by developed communities. I don't see the reason to have that. Now, maybe there's some compelling legal reason. Maybe we have growth desires that we're not making public, but I don't see any of the surrounding communities prepared to surrender lands to increase the size of Franklin. So my question is, do we even need that? And it may be a legal thing, just in case someday, you know, things change, but why we talk about annexations, I don't get. Article 3. Impervious surface coverage, this is in D, E. Anyways, gravel composite. The engineer should argue this one through. Concrete, asphalt, those are all impervious surfaces. I would argue that composite gravel is not. Yes, it resists water moving through it, but it is not an impervious surface. And we shouldn't be counting it as such. And we should also rethink the whole part about decks being impervious surfaces, because that's what we count them as. Every deck I've known has got a 1/4 inch gap between all the boards. Water moves through. I would argue it's not impervious. Again, let the engineers fight that one out. In general, I'm a little bit confused about the RC zoning district. And I fully understand where this is coming from and why we want to do this. The whole idea of offering incentives for developers to protect, preserve more resources, those are all good things. I'm not clear on why properties shown as RC conservation residence on here are labeled as such. There may be some criteria I don't know of, whether they have a certain amount of natural resources on them or something, but there's properties that were previously were zoned some other residential zoning category, and now we're pushing them into the light yellow, which should be an option, but that should be an option based upon development choice. So I'm just not clear. And I can deal with this one-on-one with staff. But if you look at a lot of these light yellow parcels, it's like, yeah, I'm not figuring out. There's big ones, there's little ones. I'd like to understand what the rationale is. There's some small existing residential properties that seems to have been rezoned to this. Help me to understand it. Let me just jump ahead. Go to the natural resources. The concept of primary environmental corridors, secondary environmental corridors, and isolated natural areas. Those are not discrete things like wetlands or woodlands. It's a concept developed by Sewer PAC and other entities that say that many of the desirable traits that we have in our communities are located in these environmental corridors. And they're defined, they all have the same definition, the same contents. The difference between them is the primary environmental corridors, and I'm speaking off the top of my head, but they need to be 4 miles in length and 400 feet wide. There's a criteria for that. If you put development or a road through there and you cut it into 2 pieces, that same entity is now a secondary environmental corridor. And if you chop it up enough times, then it becomes an isolated natural area. It's a really important concept that people need to understand. And I think that it's absolutely essential that that be one of the first things that we protect. And I would disagree strongly with any attempt to allow for that to be, we don't call it mitigated anymore. We just shouldn't allow it. My understanding, this is beyond my pay grade, but I believe that the city of Franklin has made a commitment to Southeastern Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission that we would implement protections of the environmental corridors and isolated natural areas. That was related to the interceptor sewer that we pushed through the southern part of the city. I wasn't part of that, but my understanding is our community said we will protect them. I think we should protect them. Okay? It's huge. And the point is as Ms. Wilhelm said, they're not all mapped, but we have them. I've got the map. They're current. It should be the first thing that pops up when you start looking at any of our mapping, okay? And they should be protected 100% because the things, okay, we're going to take off the steep slopes because they're an important component of the environmental corridor. So why do we need to protect them? Just protect the corridors and the slopes will come with it. That all makes great sense. But these features, woodlands, wetlands, steep topography, all those things are what comprise the environmental corridors. So that should be the first thing that any citizen or developer looks at is where are those environmental corridors? And there should be zero degradation, zero removal of them. They're mapped by Sewer Pack and they continue to do updates on those. But, it's been suggested, well, when you put streets through it, it's impossible to do development sometimes without impacting these things. Not true. The environmental corridors, by definition, when Sewer Pack delineates them, if a road bisects it, they stop the corridor boundary at that because it's already been bisected. So it should be the first and foremost thing, and I don't see any reason to allow anybody to degrade or eliminate them, and then you can just mitigate them. And certainly if we're going to allow that, which I just said I don't want, the mitigation standards are backwards. Isolated natural areas aren't like the little kid. They're the last remnants of these important ecological areas. Okay? So let's protect them. Let's just start right there. And then a lot of this becomes secondary. And a developer can come in and turn on the layer that shows environmental corridors and goes, oh, I got one ripping right through the middle of my property. I'm going to have to find a way of feeding it with 2 entries, 2 different points, doing a conservation subdivision, finding some way to make that work. Okay? I think I made that point. They're very important, more so than anything else. Trees are trees, but we've got developers that go out and cut down the trees a year before they know they're going to be developing them. If you use the greater envelope of the environmental corridors as delineated by somebody else, and they can be marked in the field, you know where these resources are. Okay? This is what I didn't want to do. I mean, literally, I went through this and I took notes on all of this. I have questions and concerns. I'm in Article 3, 15305B, D, it looks like anyways. Entrance orientation, main entrances to buildings shall be oriented towards the primary street adjoining the subject. I think we need to clarify what happens on a corner lot, which is the primary street. We're trying to direct people where the front door goes. There's 2 equal streets. I mean, granted, one's Highway 100, it's different, but let's clarify which street corners those are. Use standards, you did a nice job on this. I'm going to suggest 15401A that we look carefully at that in terms of the recent actions we've taken on the Crocus development. It says, no community living arrangement can be established within 2,500 feet of any other such facility, regardless of its capacity. I think we just approved several buildings. You guys are the experts. Would you just look at that and make sure we don't back ourselves into a corner lots. 15403, we've got a reserve on that, place of assembly. I'm not really sure what that means, but that means you got a placeholder in there for something. So let us know what that is. 15404, recreation use. We're talking about campgrounds here. All trailer and vehicle parking spaces are to be paved with asphaltic concrete. Bad idea. Make them be paved. Asphaltic concrete that's the cheap solution, but it's not the good one. Why can't they use concrete? Why can't they do pervious pavers? So the idea is that you've got a firm surface on these things. Let's give them that option, and certainly don't mandate that it be asphaltic concrete, because that's not a good environmental or cost-effective solution. You got my engineering. Guess we're doing campsites. Yeah. I was just referring. I guess we're going to go ahead and allow for campsites, and there's all that language there.
Just on 116th Street.
Just here.
Yeah, right.
Okay, we get into 15406, talking about adult establishments. Adult establishments shall not locate or shall locate at least 1,000 feet from another. What are we trying to accomplish here? Are we trying to not have a porno alley, or are we trying to provide for unfair competition? I don't know, but we ought to be thinking a lot about adult entertainment and where and how we do that in this city. 15406A sub 4, hours of operation shall be limited. I think we've got an extra word in there, which may occur or after the hours. So I think we want to delete an or there, which may occur after the hours specified in this subsection. 15407, animal boarding facilities, kennels. No livestock or large animals shall be boarded, treated, or kept on the premise. One, you got to define what livestock is or large animals. And this is what veterinarians do. There are horses and other forms of cattle in Franklin. But if you do nothing else, you have to define livestock, because the definition that I found by pulling out the Merriam-Webster's was animals that are kept or raised for use or pleasure. So that's my hamster, my rabbit, my pet chicken, any of those things. So let's just think that through and either eliminate the no livestock, because I don't know how you can do that. And most veterinarians will deal with large livestock or small. We're not starting to board them. We're not allowing kennels to take in your cow overnight. But let's make sure that that language gets cleaned up. We're in food truck courts. Electric service shall be provided to each food truck. That language needs to be clarified. Electric service would imply a separate hookup, blah, blah, blah. If what we're trying to say is they need to have electricity there, then they need to have electricity there. And I think maybe we're trying to avoid generators, which a lot of food trucks tend to use. But to have somebody come in and set up 15 different electrical pedestals for these guys to plug into. Silliness. Oh. Nurseries, retail nurseries, overall area of any outdoor sales accessory shall not exceed the area of the principal enclosed building. I think that's the very nature of nurseries. You got a small building and you got lots of plants out there, whether you're growing them or selling them or whatever. Let's clean that up. All nurseries shall comply with Chapter 183 of the Municipal Code. I'm not sure what that is. But we do have nurseries, and they do have large footprints. And, you know, is it just nurseries, or is it Menards when they do their summer out in the parking lot sales? A lot of questions on the whole artisan manufacturing thing, which I think is great that we're addressing it and that we allow it. But we go to the extent of saying that artisan manufacturing shall not create or cause any perceptible noise, odor, smoke, electrical interference, or vibrations. I'm not sure why we're concerned about that, especially in light of what we all know, that we've got developments creating these same problems that we're not getting our arms around and dealing with. So I don't know if that applies to all manufacturing in the city or just artisan. But I did find it interesting that if you're going to have an artisan manufacturing facility, you have to have on-site retail sales. I'd like somebody to explain that to me. I mean, if I want to make birdhouses, do I have to sell them? Anyways, no questions. Self-service storage facilities, let's see, item 4, we talk about no storage spaces shall be used for residential occupancy, business sales or operation, storage of chemicals, et cetera. I would suggest that staff look at that in light of our recent approval and construction of the Rise development. Business or sales operations, I mean, that's basically what that facility is set up to do. It's just get it compliant. Oh. Solar farms. Why would we have no solar farm shall be erected on any lot less than 4 acres in size? Don't we want to encourage them anywhere and everywhere we can get? And I don't set the policy. It's an interesting question, though. And this is talking about solar farms, so I understand we're looking at a larger magnitude. This isn't the panels on the top of your house, but We Energies will pay residents to put solar panels up on their property to help them generate, because they can't do that. And so we ought to be accommodating that. Not even worth saying. We're talking about wind turbines here. Why do all turbines have to rotate in the same direction? Don't answer that for me, please.
Makes the earth go round.
And then who decides which direction they should be rotating in?
The windows.
I'm guessing that this was boilerplate extracted, because we really haven't dealt with this. ADUs, I love what we're doing there, and that's part of the answer. I understand Mr. Kineski has his concerns about them, but that's how we got into the R1E, because of a desire to have an additional building there. So we're now making them acceptable. We've got, I think, realistic rules on how to do that. Good step forward. On to Article 5, General Development Standards. Sorry,
Oh,
I'd have done this in a different format. This is what I was given. I had 6 days. I read through all of this stuff. These are my questions. And this section in particular, I think you did a nice job on.
Go to Art 6.
Go to where?
Go to the next one.
well, it's a nice one, except 23 points.
Exceptionally well. Maybe there's something about wind turbines going different ways that make people dizzy or something.
I don't know. I just read it and, somebody saw fit to put it into words. I could imagine people driving
Yeah,
by
right.
and saying, well, gee, why aren't they
Maybe
all
it's like
going the same
blowing one way
direction?
and then the other, and it just kind of cancels each other out. I don't know.
I'm sure someone can blog about it tomorrow.
One creates positive electricity, one creates negative.
Woo! There you go.
Whoa! Look at the counselor.
Are you sure about that?
Science.
The
lawyer just
Science.
chimed up.
Science, Commissioner Haley. Science.
They've got gear units in there that can let them spin any way they want.
Oil,
Okay,
the devil.
we did real well on Article 5.
No exceptions?
Sign standards, I think we're pretty good. Cleaned up a lot of the problems we have, graphics.
Oh, gosh. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
Yep, we like that one.
Halfway done.
I know. Okay, Article 7, Natural Resource Protection Standards. Item 3, we're talking surface water protection standards. Again, standardize it. Figure out what we're calling this stuff and get it the same way through, and make sure that it ends up in the definitions section, including livestock. You're gonna use that word. So we speak of surface water protection standards, it's all good. Nice graphics. I have evolved to, I don't know where I'm at, 15702B. Anyways, this is the business on surface water and wetland buffers. And it looks like this. Okay, we got a tag here that's half cut off, so that's just a graphic thing to clean up. There's some words that they want us to read, but we can't.
Bless you.
My other refers to the stream buffer, and I'm unclear on why we would use the stream center line as the measuring point from a stream buffer. Ordinary bed and banks, right? The ordinary high water mark determined by the DNR. Every stream or water course has defined bed and banks. You want to measure from the shoreline. You could have a low, flat creek, and I'll just tell you that we have these in Franklin, where the creek itself is wider than 30 or 40 feet. So by the time you measure from the center line out onto dry land, you're not protecting anything. So in all of my dealings with waterways and things, and I've had a lot of experience, I've never seen anything measured from the stream center line except property boundaries for riparian owners. Prove me wrong. We have no delineation is valid after 5 years. We should maybe have some language in there about not just the delineation being performed, but that they got concurrence from the DNR. That makes it a valid. Are we all enjoying ourselves? Okay, natural resource compensation ratios. As I already discussed, the isolated natural areas, I don't believe we should even allow them to be impacted. You'd have to argue long and hard to give me a reason why they would, even a new future street going through. And then I think we'd be claiming an exemption because it was the municipality doing it. So I would either eliminate it altogether or up the compensation ratios. All three should be at least 1.5, as I alluded to before or I stated before. Isolated natural resource and buffer. That's where the gems are. That's where you find these big mature oaks that are 200 years old and wetlands and all that happy stuff. And I agree that council should have a whack at them too. All the natural resource special exceptions. Oh, there it is. That's the primary, secondary environmental corridors and isolated areas. And this is the whole county. So it's really, this is the area we're concerned at. We should get, this is probably 10 years old. We should get the most current format in digital, and that should be what pops up immediately. And we do have significant, Ms. X was correct when she stated that the majority of the Root River corridors and primary environmental corridor controlled by the county. There's a whole bunch of secondary environmental corridors out there, right where all that, quote, prime farmland future development is going to be. So let's use it and use it wisely. Oh. You're right, John. We should have had beers and chips.
You ordering pizza for us? Is that what I heard?
Oh, boy. Subdivision standards you did good on, too.
Without exception?
I like the little flow charts. Nice stuff. And I will state, you know, I have a fairly good grip on this stuff, but I tried to look at it, I read it all fresh and tried to look at it as an outsider looking in, and I think we've accomplished a lot of those goals there. Plan development standards. So if I understand it, we're doing away with plan developments, no new ones, and existing ones are being put into plan development legacy.
Correct the plan development legacy, but if, in the future, there may be new PDDs. Yeah, and the article provides the standards.
So we're still going to allow PDDs.
They're going to be different though, right?
Going to be different.
Providing new standards for the PDD, but it may be allowed. But, you know, with the process, public hearing, Plan Commission, Common Council.
Okay. We are suggesting in here in 151007 that zoning administrator determines whether they're a major amendment or a minor amendment. I believe Ms. Wilhelm spoke to that, and my understanding is that was always something that Plan Commission determined, major or minor, and then took action based upon that.
The article specifies the criteria for major amendment for PDDs.
Right, but it's saying the zoning administrator shall determine whether the amendment is major or minor.
Based on the criteria that is listed in the
Okay.
article. Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. Is that current, or how does that information get to us on the Plan Commission?
I mean, we make the decision, but based on these standards that are clear in the text, while in the current UDO, there are some standards that says if the proposal significantly change the site, then it's major amendment, and that's vague. We're getting rid of the vagueness and provide clear, measurable standards.
And then the suggestion is that the zoning administrator would decide whether it's major or minor before that's brought to the plan commission.
Correct, but decision based on the standards.
those
right,
criteria.
Yeah.
You're on the hook.
Yeah.
Do it right.
Mr. City Attorney?
Isn't the question,
You hit
Regular.
why is staff doing the minor
I don't think you could.
amendment decision? I had it.
It's good.
There you go. Now you're good. You're good.
Okay.
Versus the plan commission. Is that your question too?
Yeah.
Has staff currently been doing the minor amendments? They're already doing it that way.
Site plans, currently, site plans, minor amendments, staff, right? Major amendments,
Currently.
plan commission, currently. PDDs, major,
I'm talking
minor.
about minor amendments.
No, but PDD has major and minor amendments. For PDDs, currently, both goes to plan commission, common council.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it's not staff doing it.
Staff
Currently.
is doing
Current.
a portion of, minor site
Site plan amendments, but not PDDs, if I'm
Oh.
following this.
We're talking about a minor site plan amendment. Currently, who does it? Who decides?
Currently, staff.
Okay. That's it.
How,
Unless it's a PDD.
Unless it's a
Right,
PDD, in which case the plan commission does it. And that's still the case?
however, the criteria to differentiate a major
Well,
or a
the-
minor site plan amendment
James,
is
that's
vague.
not the
Yeah,
Brings for
right.
everybody.
Okay, okay. Yeah.
Just to answer that question, who does it? It
Short.
varies. You have the item about P18 before the commission this evening that allows
Kristen,
staff review.
short.
Then other commissions, other PDDs.
I was trying to keep it short.
By the staff.
Former Alderwoman, if you can simply shortly make your point shortly, please.
Well, what I was going to say is, it used to be the Plan Commission, and one day the application changed online. I don't know when that was officially approved, but I think it was a direction by Olson to the planning staff, and I don't think that was approved by the council. Somebody can prove me wrong on that one. But the application changed for staff to do that at some point. Don't know when, don't know how, don't remember it, but somebody should look into that, because you may be doing it that way, but was it officially sanctioned by the council or not is my question. Thanks.
Great point. Mr. Leon?
Oh,
Said it's in the
almost done.
code.
I was just going to ask if we needed to suspend the rules or.
We went rogue.
former Alder.
We went
Okay.
rogue on
Mr.
it.
Went
Mr.
rogue.
Haley, continue.
We all received these comments from Ms. Gint. I'd like to see those incorporated as suggested. I've read through them. I think they all make sense and are good. Unless
On her document submitted.
her document, there are simple changes, additions of words. I don't think there's significant changes there, but I think that there's merit to them. And with that, I'll leave you alone. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Haley. Mr. Schongel?
As the second newest person on the commission, I think you guys put me next to Kevin, so through osmosis, I would learn something every meeting. And reflecting on what Patrick said, I think the comments from Bruce and Kristen and Dana and Kevin, I've got so many questions that I feel like, Patrick, I'm not qualified to take a vote on this until I do a little research on my own. And we haven't heard staff's reactions to some of the comments yet either.
Right, we're going to get to that after everyone's done, and I have a plan. So
Okay.
just bear
Awesome.
with me on my plan. You'll like it.
I agree with Kevin on Dana's comments, and I just need to do some more homework on this before I feel like I could make a vote, so. But I think it's time we did it, and you guys have done a great job to this point. And the comprehensive master plan, I was glad to hear Kelly's comments about that, because that's got to be incorporated. And I wondered if anybody else in the room has read the whole document as carefully as Kevin did.
My brain hurts.
I'll leave that up to everybody's conscience. So that's it.
Mr. Leon?
Thank you, Mayor. I hope both the consultants and staff read the draft ordinance as thoroughly as Commissioner Haley. I trust that they did. I would ask also, Mayor, that if we are going to have comments, even from a former alder, that we do suspend the rules just for our own decorum here within this meeting. Early on, Commissioner Haley reminded me of something that former alder Wilhelm mentioned, and I didn't specifically address, but I would like to know from staff if this does remove petitioning from residents, because I believe that former alder Wilhelm made a very strong point that residents are enshrined protections to petition even at the municipal level. And while I'm still going to abstain, if this were to move forward to council, I believe that it should continue to have the protections of residents to petition. And to the former alder's point, if somebody's going to take the time to do it, then this body and the council should be required to hear that petitioning. So if staff could specifically address whether or not this version of the ordinance removes the ability to petition, and if so, although I'm going to abstain on the vote, I would recommend it not move forward if it contains, or if it fails to contain, the ability for residents to petition. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Leon, and I did go rogue because Alderman Wilhelm is on that committee, and I figured if she has a committee viewpoint that it would be easily received, opposed to suspending rules, looking for a motion, a second, voting. We could simply have a committee member come up and make that quick comment. So that's why I did that, not to throw off everybody that could be paying attention. So my streamline to this is if staff could answer the questions, if you can, from the people that came up to the podium during the hearing. And other than that, staff, and I believe the right way to go would be to formulate your responses to the questions from the commission members, and then that be made to all the commission members in some sort of document. But if there is a way that we could, because there are people that are still out here, the diehards that that they've gone through this, and perhaps we can at least satisfy their questions. If you can't tonight, then again, please get back with them because it is very, very important. Mr. Martinez, you have the floor.
Thank you. Yeah,
Ms.
so
Adams.
I will start with responses to public comments. There was a comment about the single-family use that is listed in the draft as not permitted in multifamily residential district. Yeah, that is a good catch. We have that revision, but for some reason it was missed in the cover memo. So we're making note to for single family to be permitted use in multifamily residential. Currently, it's conditional use. There was another comment about the consistency of the zoning map with the future land use map. When we did the revisions, reviewed this zoning map several times, one of the criteria was that to be consistent with the future land use map. Another criteria was not to create non-conforming uses. So that was considered into the preparation of the zoning map. Well, the comment about the R1E zoning district, that it's for policy direction, as stated in the cover memo. Okay, the question about the accessory dwelling units, like for example about the utilities, the water meter, the garbage. For example, the current UDO, where it allows for two family dwellings, it doesn't get into that detail about the water meters or who's picking up the garbage. So that's up to the utility company. And for the ADUs, the attached, the detached, it will need to go to the conditional use permit. It is the internal ADU that will be permitted by right, but that could be changed depending on the policy to be also conditional use. Just to clarify that new PDDs may be allowed in the future, but following the standards of the article of the PDD. Okay. Um, there was a comment about the outdoor dining, if it has music. I think staff will take a look at that because if it has like outdoor music, then we think that it should fall into the conditional use because that's what triggers the requirement for a sound study. So we will add, we will revise that. One comment about the uses not listed, that should be determined by the zoning administrator. So what is proposed in the article, if the use is not listed, the zoning administrator may determine that it's similar to a use that is listed, and in that case, we should follow the permitted or conditional. However, that may be changed by the Plan Commission, that if it's not listed, to be considered as prohibited, or it could be determined by the Plan Commission in what category will follow. Protest petitions, I just checked, for example, for conditional use, I just checked the draft and that remains, like for example, for conditional use. So to answer also your question.
You can vote now.
The comment about the land adjoining TITS, that's from language from the current UDO that was copied without changes. The Common Council review for NRSE, recommendation is to be at the Environmental Commission meeting, a recommendation, and public hearing and decision by the Plan Commission. Because, well, as you know, the Plan Commission has the mayor, and now we'll have 2 elder persons. However, that's for policy direction, if to keep the Common Council review for NRSC. There was another question about the vested rights section that was removed. I just checked here in Article 1, and it's there, the vested rights section. There was another question about the special events. What we're proposing in the text is to refer to the municipal code because that's actually regulated by the municipal code. And the question about if the sound study requirement will apply to existing development like PDD, like the rock, that's in the PDD for the rock that the sound study is required. So that's a requirement regardless of if this UDO is adopted or not. Okay, that's all for comments from the public. I know that there were some questions for city attorney, and I know some comments about environmental corridors. I don't know if you want to elaborate on that, Mario.
No.
I have a couple of responses to natural resource items if you
Yep.
you know.
Please.
Okay, so something that was brought up several times, and I'm hearing the feedback from this body that the desire is to continue to allow or to vest the approval of the natural resource special exception in Common Council and not Plan Commission. So that's something that obviously is subject to policy direction. I did not note during the presentation, but a public hearing is a requirement of that variance type. So there is public input at that meeting as a matter of procedure for the current process and the proposed process. I also want to note that there are many other bodies that are empowered to approve a variance. So BZBA being one of them, the Plan Commission has variance approvals. And so that's something that I think we proposed as a goal for streamlining the process. I still recommend that Environmental Commission have a role, and then the determination of who has the approval is for policy direction. The definition of surface waters, that's something that I will take a careful look at. It's not the intention to create two classes of surface waters by distinguishing between federally recognized waters, et cetera, but that all of them are also regulated under the ordinance. And I think we need to make sure that that gets clarified. So if that wasn't clear, that I'll go double check that. Thank you for the feedback about compensation ratios, especially for environmental corridors. It's something that I'm going to have to evaluate. These are the proposed ratios. If you have some more specific feedback about what you would recommend, I don't recommend a zero impact standard for any of these natural resources. I think that that would basically preclude development in some parts of the city. You'd be physically isolating them. And so it's something that I think we can have a broader discussion about, but I hear the feedback about them being backwards. As a policy goal, so this ordinance doesn't address the certain kinds of policy goals. That's something that a comp plan should do in terms of reuniting those corridors. But I've heard discussion of the previous agreements and plans with Sewer PAC, and that's something that I think we need to take a careful look at and maybe develop a policy for how to start to rebuild some of those corridors if that is a goal of the city. And then I will have to confer about the Stream Central Line question. So I think that was everything that I had called out as needing a response. So sorry if I missed anything.
I have additional responses to Plan Commission.
It's, if you wish to, sorry, 4 cough drops? We only had 20? Okay. So if you wish to briefly knock it out, if not, respond back to them in writing, just for the sake of time. What? Go ahead. You get the floor, sir.
Just do it, otherwise it's
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. To Commissioner Leon, one concern about the zoning administrator to approve site plans. So the staff recommendation is that give that role to the zoning administrator for permitted uses. And if the development complies with all the standards, because if it doesn't comply, then it will have the variance process with a public hearing that will go to the BZBA. The issue is that there are like 3 types of decisions. The administrative decision, like a site plan that is a permitted use, that is typically recommended by best practice in planning to be by staff. Then the quasi-judicial, like variances on special uses, typically by a recommending body like the Plan Commission or the BZBA, and the legislative decision with more discretion, like a rezoning or an amendment to the comprehensive plan, that it's should be by the governing body, the Common Council. So that's why for administrative, where decisions where there little no discretion, remain with the staff. If discretion is needed for that deviation, a reduced setback, whatever, we'll go to the variance process. Okay, that's the staff recommendation.
Thank you.
However, it's
that clarifies it for me.
direction. Now with Commissioner Haley's comments, the color scheme about the zoning map, yeah, good catch. I don't know what the issue is with the prime agricultural, because in the text, the current UDO has the agricultural A1 and prime agricultural A2. The current and the proposed text has A1, prime agricultural, agricultural and prime. So I don't understand what the issue is with the prime agricultural.
John?
Mr. Haley.
I would call them redundant at this point. I understand the greater issue in planning sewer pack prime. We're supposed to be protecting our prime agricultural soils. I don't see that happening here in Franklin. I don't know why we're bothering to differentiate between the two. What's the significant criteria? And as I suggested twice before, If we've got things that we think need that prime designation, then we ought to be talking to those property owners about their plans for the future. But otherwise, just, it's agricultural.
Ag means eggs, what you're saying.
Ag means ag. I know what prime ag is. I don't know why we're making that distinction. Because it used to be there.
Right. With that, with just retaining the two, the agricultural, the prime agricultural. We're not making any changes to that
Right.
distinction.
I wouldn't bother with the prime agricultural. Unless you've got something that you think is really great that needs to be protected. And we don't know that. Again, this was done at arm's length. We looked at some maps and some existing stuff. Nobody has gone out and actually looked at the soils or studied their fertility and their productivity. Why distinguish between them is my question.
What I know is that the main difference in zoning standards is the minimum lot area. That for one is like about 35 acres, something like that. And for the other one, it's like, I don't know, 3 acres or 1 acre. I don't remember.
And my question is, do we want that? Let's decide, because remember, we use the ag designation as the holding pattern in the language on annexing. If we annex something, if Franklin gets new land, it automatically gets put into agriculture until we find some other use for it or modify it on the zoning maps. But that's typically the standard. It's like a holding pattern. You call it ag, it sits fallow, and whether it's farmed or not doesn't matter. I'm suggesting we join the 21st century here. If we've
combine
got
it.
something that really wants to be saved,
Just eliminate.
then we should do it. I mean, one of the things we'll talk about on the proposed zoning is the parkland that the city just bought adjacent to the Franklin Savannah. We're proposing to show that as agricultural. It was purchased by the city using impact fees for a park that complies with our comprehensive outdoor recreation plan, and yet we're proposing to zone it agricultural. Yes, it is agricultural now. This is the future we're looking forward to. That's my point.
Yeah, we can take a look about what are the implications of combining the two.
And if there's, I guess that was really the question. What's the difference between the two? We're carrying over a title.
Okay.
We're going to make a motion to suspend, well, please answer, then we'll make a brief motion. Are you good with that answer for now?
You figure, just figure
All right,
it
is there a
out.
motion to suspend the rules?
I move that we suspend the rules to allow former Alder Wilhelm to speak on this matter.
Second.
First and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Go ahead.
It's my understanding that there is a difference in those two, and they were classified by soils, and there are many planning documents that say Franklin has the last remainings and the best remaining agricultural lands in all of Milwaukee County. And so they picked out the best of the best and separated them. And had Milwaukee County adopted or been allowed to by Franklin or been asked by Franklin to get an agricultural plan put together, Franklin's area would have qualified for protecting some of those ag lands, but nobody in Franklin at the time cared enough to move that forward. And that is in the old comprehensive master plan. It's under like PACE section. I worked with Vicki Elton from Gathering Waters on that section, and it was completely ignored. So you either want to save some ag or you don't.
Motion to return to normal business.
So moved.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are back. Normal session. Let's proceed, please.
Commissioner Haley, you mentioned about sitting down with the staff and work with this comments.
Call me and I will
we can
gladly
schedule.
come in and we can take 15 minutes and probably clean it up.
Okay. About the zoning of annexations, I know that that's unlikely. We're just retaining the language from the current code.
Again, we're trying to simplify.
Right.
Okay. The comment about the composite gravel, I'll defer that to city engineer. So we can discuss that. And the same for the decks, if it's impervious or not. The comment about the RC zoning district, this is to kind of will be similar to the R1 or the R2 that are the district that has the low density. So it's kind of that combination.
But my question was, we've taken several parcels that are zoned something else, other type of residential, and moved them into that. And I'm just curious as to what, and we can discuss it offline, is
Okay.
what is it that's driving, taking this residence and saying this could be an RC? I mean, we try to avoid spot zoning, correct?
Right. Okay. We're going to revise the comment that you have of the community living. There is a radius restriction. Going to revise that. And same for the adult establishments. Definition for livestock added to the list. And same for the requirement about
Livestock?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what you said.
Yeah, the electrical service for food truck carts added to the list. Standards for nurseries, and also the artisan manufacturing. And we're going also to revise the standard for self-storage to check what we have for approved for rice. If we need to change any standards for that.
Could I go back to one point you made about the food trucks? So let's say, for example, there's a business in our community that has a food truck night on, let's say, Thursdays. And there's 10 to 12 food trucks that show up there on every Thursday. How is that going to have a negative impact on them? Because that food truck event, and I'm not a food truck guy, I'm not opposed to it, but I'm saying for those, it's very successful. So how is that going to have a negative impact on them at all? Because right now, from what I understand, they pull up, some have, they're self-contained generators and such. Are we going to now require that each truck area where they plug in has their own electrical source?
Yeah.
To me, that's terrible. That's going to have a negative impact on a nice, successful community event that they love every Thursday, and I don't think we should be interfering and sticking our city hall nose where it doesn't belong.
Yeah, just to mention one difference. One of the food truck that the text has on its standards, right? Like a food truck that goes to a restaurant, like the example you mentioned. Okay, that electrical service requirement is not for that. The electrical service is for a food truck court. That is, for example, I don't know if you have been there, Zocalo at Milwaukee. That is kind of an area that is designated, we'll say, for permanent food trucks.
Okay. I get that part.
Okay.
So, but there'll be some that'll argue that if this is a permitted thing on every Thursday, you're going to hear this from some, probably, that they're going to try to tie this into that. And I just want to make sure that that's not going to happen, to have a stymied event like this, which has grown very popular for people, and the city doesn't belong messing with this.
Yeah, because in the example that you're saying, the food truck will be accessory to something, accessory to a restaurant or to a bar. And the food truck court, that's the principal use, and that will need to go through a site plan.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Leon.
Thank you, Mayor. On the mayor's point, if we had this requirement on a proposal or an agenda item earlier this year, Poth's General, there's a discussion of a food truck area. Under this proposed ordinance and the change to it that I believe Commissioner Haley proposed,
that would be fair.
Would they have to have the electrical hookup or electricity under what Commissioner Haley proposed changing this ordinance?
I don't think so, because the POF General received a PDD approval. Yeah.
Understood. Let me rephrase the question. If that agenda item were to have been proposed and this new ordinance would take place, would the developer have to provide electrical for food trucks as accessories so that they could have them?
In that case, as the text is currently written, yes.
As the text is currently written.
Right. But this could be changed per
Yeah,
your
then-
comments. So.
Then again, I've said it a few times, although I still intend to abstain. I agree with the mayor on this, that would disrupt food trucks, not only current, but potentially future developments for that. And it is a popular activity in the nice weather. I don't have any issues with generators or running off of the vehicle's motor. I think it's fine as is. That's my 2 cents.
Mr. Haley, hold on 1 second. So I've got one other scenario. So I've been approached by identify more than one tavern in the city of Franklin that doesn't have a kitchen and doesn't offer food and is looking to contract with a food truck to come in every Friday and Saturday, would they be required to have a permanent electrical post, or can they still operate?
No, because this will be a food court. I'm sorry, a food truck.
It is a food
Yeah,
truck.
food
They,
truck.
they want to
Right,
pull in
right,
outside another tavern,
right.
and they want to sell tacos out of their food truck 2 days a week, 3 days a week. Will they be required to have a permanent electrical structure?
No, because the requirement is for a food truck court.
Thank you. Good enough, Mr. Haley.
Just wanted to clarify, that was the point I was trying to make, because the way it's phrased, each truck needs to have its own electrical service, and that's not valid. They should have access to electricity, whether it's an extension cord from the building, but the last thing you want is 15 electrical pedestals that cost $15,000 to install out there for them to plug into.
Exactly.
It's not electrical service. They should have availability to electricity, something to that effect.
Thank you. Mr. Martinez, please continue.
Yeah. And I will just mention about the section courts. I will run that to the fire department so we can get input from fire department.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we should get our arms around our generators, okay.
Okay. Yeah, we received the comments from Mrs. Gint. Honestly, haven't had a chance to review, but we're going to take a look and address these comments. Yeah, and that's what I have for Commissioner Haley. Yeah, no, nothing for Commissioner Shago. So,
Mr. City Attorney, if you could electrify him, please. Sir.
More than once questions earlier with regard to petitions. I assume the questions meant protest petitions. Is that in the updated UDO?
hold on. Protest petition, yep, for conditional uses.
What about in general protest petitions, the same as it currently is in code UDO?
In the code, each application, like conditional use, rezoning, has its own section, and it says if it requires the protest petition or not. So for conditional uses, yes, it remains. But it varies depending on the application.
So it's changed from what's currently in the UDO? Isn't there a protest petition provision in the municipal code too?
No, it's typically.
Statute was rescinded a couple of years ago, I think.
Yeah.
But you
For yeah.
If
in the municipal code.
Chapter 96, because you're not doing the mic. So chapter 96, I want to make sure everybody.
However, as I'm reading it, it pertains to cable television franchise.
Well,
The only place where I see it is in the UDO.
What I can provide for the next meeting, if this is table, to have like a table with each application, current, proposed, protest petition, and then we could see what application has the protest petition currently, if it will be retained or not.
I only asked because others asked. There was no answer. So
I don't see it in the municipal code so far. I see it a lot in our UDO, our current one.
I'll tell you, so we'll move on. If you find it in the Muni code, then just chime in, please.
That's all my comments to the Plan Commission.
Okay, so with that, and I know where this is going to go, but we'll still do it. could you please read any sort of motion for this? A lot of notes.
I have the standard motion. However, the staff recommendation is to table to incorporate all the comments and provide a new cover memo with the revisions based on the public hearing.
Well, then what we'll do is we'll change that and we'll not make the motion. We'll do a motion to table. Motion to table and to address the comments. Is that correct?
Put over to the next meeting.
Regular,
I
go ahead.
suggest that the next meeting will be too soon because packets will be due
I
next
agree.
week. And the February 20 meeting is canceled.
Right.
So my suggestion is a March 6th.
The Ides of March, vehicle, 1970.
The Ides of March.
So, it was a song. These guys got it down there.
March 15th.
They were all over it.
That's when Caesar was killed.
Yeah.
So,
March 15th.
so we're gonna put this over to
4 years high
what
school
exact date, sir? March
March
6th,
6th.
2025.
Not
So
the
is
Ides
there a
of March.
motion to table this until March 6th,
Okay.
2025? We got a first
Second.
Call
and a
the roll.
second.
He's not on.
We've got a first and a second.
Shago.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Are you,
Call the roll.
You stating on the.
even that? You're abstaining? on
I'll
the push?
explain why with my vote.
Okay.
Regular.
Just to confirm, motion by Commissioner Shago, seconded by Commissioner Haley, correct?
Correct. And we'll do a roll call vote, please.
You just have to put them all on. You just have to put them all on. No,
It doesn't.
there's only 8. There's only 8 uses, even though there's
Right.
9
all on.
microphones.
It's fine.
You can't do it. Yeah.
You can only turn
So
on.
when you turn
Oh, I
the
see.
attorney's mic on, it cuts somebody else, but then you just cut one.
We're good. Everybody just breathe a minute.
Oh, thank you.
I'm not breathing, I'm sorry.
You don't need to.
Okay.
Right, now we're gonna
now-
go here. Now we're gonna go with a roll call vote.
Commissioner Shago,
Aye.
Commissioner Haley,
Aye.
Commissioner Leon,
Because the scope of this is something that I do not believe the Plan Commission should endorse. I don't take this as for or against what is actually proposed, just simply that it's not the purpose of this body to endorse something. I abstain.
And then I vote
Mayor Nelson.
aye. 3 ayes, 1 abstention. So this will fail, but it'll still move forward at this point. Because it's not gonna get affirmed.
There's no motion.
Remember last time?
There's no action.
So it's,
I dare say the presiding officer can bring it back at it.
so presiding officer chooses to bring it back on March 6th,
Not the Ides of March.
not the Ides of March. A single song called Vehicle. All right, are we good? Thank you. Uh-oh. No, I know that. No, I'm just saying about that portion.
Caesar was killed.
So now we're gonna move forward to D as in David, citizen comment period. Okay, this is for anybody who wishes to speak on the business matters under E. Edward 1 and 2. Any citizens wishing to come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and you can speak on the subjects of item E as in Edward 1 and 2. Going once, going twice. Close citizen comment period, go to E as in Edward. Number 1, I'll read it, Mary, and then I'll turn it over to you, okay? Number 1, Department of Public Works Site Plan Amendment, request for approval of a site plan amendment to revise the previously proposed berm and landscape plan on property located at 7979 West Ryan Road, tax key number 896-9990-001, Ms. X.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have a presentation prepared, but it's not coming up, and I'm going to do this really briefly. If the commission has any questions about this application, it's a request by DPW to revise this previously approved site plan that included a pretty large berm on the southern portion of the property. They do not wish to install that berm any longer or any of the landscaping that goes with it. They're also proposing to revise some of the stormwater detention facilities. All of it meets the requirements of the ordinance and only needs your approval to proceed.
Excellent. None? Sorry, Mr. Haley, go ahead.
I'm just going to ask the question. I heard a lot of promises made to the neighbors to the south. Where are we at with all that? Have they been notified? I mean, I thought it, whatever. It is what it is. The berm and the planting are supposed to placate them and their concerns.
Could I ask you, is there a differentiation, the berm and the plantings?
I don't understand the question. So the berm was proposed to be a berm that was going up, and then the landscape buffer was to be installed at that point. It's something that's typically required between different zoning districts.
Okay.
The landscaping is no longer proposed.
Okay.
So there is, however, that 6-foot fence that was originally proposed with the one that you can see through, but it has slats. I'm sorry.
Is it still a slatted fence?
Yes.
Still a 6-foot slatted fence that will still be installed to buffer the neighbors to the south.
Correct.
Thank you. Mr. City Attorney? Nope, you're good.
The way I read the report, it was the reason it's changing to this is because of concerns from the public, neighbors.
Enter Mr. Mike Poulos from Grafe. I'm not sure if that microphone is on. Thank you and good evening.
Hello.
I don't think it'll be on in a second.
Okay, good. Oh, that looks live. So with DPW, the stormwater management plan has changed significantly. We're going to phase the project now. With the phasing, the berm and landscaping will come at a future phase. That's the reason for the change.
Could you say that again?
The initial stormwater plan for DPW was designed for the ultimate build out. There's future phases coming with it. We're only doing phase 1 currently. So to save over $500,000, decided to pare it back just to serve what's being built today, which affects the berm and the landscaping and the fencing for later. So it's going to be done eventually, just it has to be phased at a later date. I was going to be redoing work and wasting money.
Makes perfect sense. Mr. Haley, are you good with that?
Good with that?
All right.
No,
Is
I'm not elected.
there, what's that?
I'm not elected.
Okay.
Somebody's going to get calls.
Come on, you get calls every day. Is there a motion, please?
A motion to adopt a resolution approving a site plan amendment for changes to the approved landscape plan and site design of the Department of Public Works facility upon property located at 7979 West Ryan Road.
So moved.
Second.
So we've got a first and a second, then I'm going to do further discussion. So, Mr. Haley, to his point, so right now, this berm is taken away, but it may come back or will come back in the future.
Correct.
Which one? May come back or will come back?
Will come back.
So it will come back. So if there were calls, to Mr. Haley's point, the answer to those concerns would be it will be, but not right now because it also saves us $500,000.
Correct.
Okay, so we've got a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Ayes have it. Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to number 2. E2, Crohn's Land Combination. Land combination application for properties located at approximately 5921 West Ryan Road, bearing tax key numbers 899-9991-002 and 899-9991-003 and 899-9991-005. Ms. X, bring us home.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is a request by Crohn's to consolidate several parcels that they have current ownership of into a single lot as part of their ongoing development in the city. So the lot that's indicated on the graphic is what they currently own. The proposed land combination would include 2 lots to the northwest. Can you go to the next slide? So this, in order to make it more clear, I had to orient it 90 degrees, so north is on the right, but it would incorporate two existing lots, one with a structure on it and one that is currently vacant of structure, so it would eliminate that nonconformity of that property. The proposal meets the requirements of the zoning. You are making a recommendation to Common Council.
Excellent. Comments from the commission? Is there a motion?
A motion to recommend approval of a resolution conditionally approving a land combination for tax key number 899-999-0069, 899-999-0024, and 899-999-0024.
So moved.
Second.
We have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Before we go into a motion to adjourn, again, I would like to thank staff. Unbelievable. Thank you. I mean, people don't realize now you're working all day. You're working on all the other projects. You're working on your other boards and commissions and common council meetings, and you appear at plan, and it's 9:40 at night. That's why, oh, Alderman Wilhelm left, huh? Okay. Well, maybe she'll listen at home later. That's why it is so important that we look to streamline and start thinking more of what makes sense for the city as a whole, including our staff. Because this, you guys are putting in a lot of hours, a lot of time. And, you know, Mr. Poulos from Grafe is here, and thank you for not charging us for these 3.5 hours. That was wonderful.
Charging us.
4 hours? Well, there's prep time. But in all seriousness, staff is doing an excellent job, and you get questioned a lot. There's a lot of follow-up to still do, and your regular jobs. I mean, this is a big deal. So I just want to say thank you, and it means a lot. It's a lot of hours. There's a lot of dedication. You have to have the right answer, and there's a lot of people that hold you accountable for every little thing you say and do. I get it. So I appreciate what you go through. Motion to adjourn. Oh, Mr. Leone.
Before that, and I agree with all the mayor's comments, but since this C4 was tabled, should we keep our packet, or will a new packet be provided, be based on?
I'd say
We will provide a new packet with red line revisions,
Okay,
so
so
you don't need
get
to
rid of
read it
this?
all again. We'll just focus on the revisions.
Okay, so,
New packet, yeah.
thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
First and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have, motion carries. We are adjourned. 9:40.